Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 414. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what's good?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on this week's show, we have Absolute Power Ground Zero Issue 1, Detective Comics 1086, Action Comics 1066, Superman 15, The Flash number 10, The Penguin issue 11, Green Arrow 13, Power Girl issue 10, and Zatanna Bring Down the House issue 1. So, hefty week. Well, it was a hefty week for Matt. I had 6 books. Matt had 3 books as on top of those 6 that I didn't read.
2 of them were completely superfluous. One of them I kind of enjoyed. So we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. I left the Patreon books for another week just because it looked like a healthy. I mean, I have the same number of books next week actually, but there's not like 3 extra books next week from you.
Yeah.
So, just to keep the shows a bit more even. If DC aren't going to give us an even schedule, then we have to try and massage it wherever we can. So. Yeah, that's all the books we're going to get into. There's a little bit of news, and of course the top 10 and all that. But Matt, how was your week?
Very, very long, very busy with work. Very exhausting 'cause it's been hot. So not, and I had to spend half my week reading comics. So, how was yours?
I mean, it was alright. It warmed up a little bit, although it was oddly, it got warm again, but it was also rainy at the same time, so it was kind of a weird mix of
You got the humid, the living in a cloud.
It wasn't even that humid. That's the weird thing. It was windy and wet outside, but the temperature was quite warm. It was honestly picking what to wear going out for a walk was very difficult. Like I really had to do like a beautiful mind, add all the equations in the head, try to work out what am I going to be comfortable in. So that was the thing.
So if you don't know how hot it is here, it's 40 degrees Celsius right now. So, yep.
Burn in hell, because you are.
Yeah, it got so much so I'll drink an energy drink before I go play football in the morning. I bought something cheaper. And apparently there's thermogenics in there, which is it helps your body temperature get up so you can sweat, right? It's meant to help to workouts. I didn't really think about that before pounding it, before going and playing in 90-degree weather. So there were points where I was almost throwing up on the field because it was that hot, and I had to swap in and swap out. So lesson learned: no more energy drinks before football. I do learn my lesson.
Yeah, that sounds.
But it's so damn hot, and it's only gonna get hotter this next week. So I'm gonna try to stay indoors. We do have our big 4th of July holiday coming up. Gonna watch Jaws, and enjoy the air conditioning.
Oh yeah, that's next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you've been thinking about it. I started rewatching something this week because it was on sale on iTunes. $10 for the 2 seasons, so I got Scream Queens. So just yesterday I watched the double episode pilot, and also because Twisters is coming up and Glenn Powell's like a movie star now. Yeah. It seemed like a good time to revisit the one character that I will associate with him till the end of time. And every character he plays that's not Chad Radwell, I am disappointed he's not playing Chad Radwell. So. Interesting to go back to that now, like, because it's 9 years old, which is insane.
Oh, why'd you say that?
It's 9 years old, Matt. It debuted in 2015.
Jeez.
And it's so wild because they referenced Taylor Swift in the first episode, and I was like, it was Taylor Swift around 9 years ago? She's only been here for a couple of years. What is this nonsense?
No, I think she was on it too. I think she makes an appearance.
Was she? Ariana Grande's in the first episode. I don't know about Taylor Swift, but.
She might have showed up in the second season, and so whenever they're rushing the new pledges, I believe Taylor was on there.
That's season 1.
Okay. Are
you sure you're not thinking of the character they call Deaf Taylor Swift in the first episode? No. Okay.
Well, let me double check because I remember it being a big deal. But no, it's another. I wanted to revisit it too, but I always do that thing where I'm afraid it's not going to hold up. you know.
I mean, it was making me laugh. Admittedly, I don't think it's at its peak in its first couple of episodes, but it was making me laugh already. Anytime Chanel says something inappropriate, I'm having a good I'm having a good time. Something as simple as her waking up and saying "morning sluts" to her friends cracks me up.
No, yeah. So that's what it was. She was originally supposed to have a cameo on Scream Queens, but she couldn't make it work.
Okay.
So I remember her name being associated through there, and I think it was with the deaf Taylor Swift character. Yeah. There was going to be something to do with that, but yeah.
For the record, I only know who Ariana Grande is, or at least I first learned of her because of this show. I didn't know she was a famous musician. I just thought she was another actress in the episode. So that I found out, and that's how I know who she is. So I'm hit with the music. The kids, I know what they're listening to.
Apparently, there's someone called Sabrina Carpenter, and I've been thinking my wife's been singing an old Kesha song to be funny, and it turns out it's a new Sabrina Carpenter song. So
it's funny because I joke about knowing or not knowing what the kids are into, but that's not even a funny joke when it comes to Taylor Swift, because her audience are all like 30, 40 something women. So
guys, she's not home, so I can say this. I have open. It's a cult. Like it is a cult. It's funny because she hates Jake Gyllenhaal because of Jake Gyllenhaal's past with Taylor Swift. And apparently he was not a very good ex, and so Gyllenhaal's effectively banned in this household. So if I want to watch Gyllenhaal movies, I gotta do it on the sly, which is why I still haven't seen Ambulance, right? Which I do want to see. It's Michael Bay. I tend to enjoy, even if they in a
there's a line, Matt. There's a line in the first episode of Scream Queens where I don't remember what the build up to it is, but they're saying who would make the movie of this, and Chad's gay friend Boone says, and it would be directed by Michael Bay, the greatest director of all time. There you go. And then they like fist pump or something.
Yes. Still part of the podcast. Anyways, Gyllenhaal's in a new Presumed Innocent remake series. And every time we turn on the Apple TV,
I'm the same. I've been seeing the trailer because I've seen the first 5 seconds of the trailer probably 50 times in the last week.
Yep. And so she just points at it and goes, "He's a murderer," And we'll eventually get around to it. I'm trying to track down the original Harrison Ford movie. This is one of the few Harrison Ford movies I haven't seen. So I like to watch those back to back and compare. But yeah, every time she sees it, murder. Yeah. It's a cult.
Matt, I want you to tell your wife for me that Jake Gyllenhaal's a better actor than Taylor Swift as a singer, and just lob that grenade and let it lie.
Are you trying to get me killed? Are you trying to get me on Dateline, Pete? Because it'll happen. Oh, my brother loves to be like, who's a good actor? Jake Gyllenhaal. He's never done anything wrong ever.
I think Matt's next birthday present has to be a T-shirt saying Gyllenhaal's better than Swift.
Oh, I've had it. So for her birthday, my brother made her a shirt that was essentially it looks like a death metal band, but it's Taylor Swift, and it says necrosis to Gyllenhaal because he just got on like thesaurus for different words for death. But it actually goes together because it looks like a album for a death metal band. Just happens to have Taylor Swift in the font. So real funny, but yes, no. And it's a shame because I like Gyllenhaal as an actor. She's still gone. So I like Gyllenhaal as an actor. Like, see,
the level of fear of which you have to have when you're talking about how much you like Jake Gyllenhaal is...
It's not fear, it's caution. It's a healthy amount of caution. Just because
there's nothing healthy about this, Matt.
Oh no, definitely not.
There's nothing healthy about this. Definitely not.
So, but yes, she, thank God Ryan Gosling's never done anything that stupid. So he's just being over there being nice because I couldn't handle that. You can't tell me not to like Ryan Gosling. It's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get into comic book stuff then, shall we? Coming up. First, we got the Kindle store top 10, which just sounds like shit compared to ComiXology. ComiXology was such a better name. I still mourn to this day, but it is what it is. So, separated by Tuesday and Wednesday, of course, although it's sometime in July this switches over, right?
It's coming up closer than it has.
Oh, is it next week? could even be next week. I don't even know if it's next week.
Let me see. Because July 3rd's a Wednesday. Yep, there it is. It starts next week.
Okay, so this is the final time.
Let me double check.
Oh.
Yes, July 3rd is a Wednesday.
Okay.
So it starts next week. Wow.
This is the final time. We will be splitting them by day then. We can actually compare DC and Marvel and probably get depressed because Marvel's going to outsell DC.
Yeah. So I'm just going to tell people now. So on big weeks like this, that I have one less day, it definitely will not be reading 3 extra books on a packed week.
You'll be reading 4 extra books.
No, maybe 1.
All right. What's your guess for Tuesday?
I'm gonna guess the Acid Power Ground Zero.
That is correct. You got that. Easy pickings. Number 2 is Superman. Number 3 is Action Comics. 4 is Zatanna. 5 is Detective Comics. 6 is Green Arrow. 7 is The Flash. So I don't think a lot of people are liking that run based on it slipping down the ranks. Batman Brave and the Bold is number 8. Number 9 is The Penguin, and number 10 is Power Girl. So that is a full slate though of single issues, which is nice to see because it's been a couple of weeks since we've had that. It's been a lot of 6 or 7, then the collections start creeping in. So that is nice to see at the very least. Looking at Wednesday's books, do you have a guess for number 1?
So there's one that's up that normally isn't there, but it's not Marvel. But so I'm gonna try to look through what else we have from Marvel before I commit. So if we're gonna go with the Marvel, I'm going to guess Blood Hunt 4.
I'm actually surprised you got that right, to be honest. I wasn't expecting it. Number 2 is X-Men Heir of Apocalypse. Number 3 is Ultimate Black Panther. I almost said Ultimate Black Adam there. Just my DC brain just corrected it.
Yeah.
Number 4 is Void Rivals. Number 5 is X-Men Blood Hunt Magic. So tie into that book. 6 is Daredevil. 7 is Moon Knight. Or sorry, Vengeance of the Moon Knight, to be precise. Number 8 is Rook Exodus, which is the Jeff Johns book at Image. And 9 is Midnight Suns Blood Hunt. And 10 is Thanos Annual issue 1. So mostly Marvel, but a couple of non-books there. We had the Void Rivals book and the Jeff Johns Image book. So
Leah Comic Geeks had Something is Killing the Children in the number 1 spot. And then that didn't even place in the Kindle.
No, I mean, Department of Truth's 15, and then Something is Killing the Children is about 18 there. So
yeah, so it just shows you the difference in the sites and what people are. It's a self-selecting bunch on League of Comic Geeks, right?
Yeah, but of course that potentially represents people who are buying physical books. Obviously, there's no guarantee that everyone's ticked these things is actually buying them, but it's still interesting enough to gauge interest to an extent. Yeah, okay, there you go. Department of Truth and Something is Killing the Children are 2 books that I definitely need to read at some point, and I just keep not starting extracurricular books for some reason.
The fact that are you still going through X-Files, or you already did that, right?
A TV show?
Yeah.
I'm still doing that, yeah.
You're still doing it, yeah. I think you'd pick up on Department of Truth. There's some X-Files vibes.
I'm only about 2/3 through season 2, man. It's going to take a long time to get through that.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I couldn't remember if you were.
Because I'm reviewing it on a weekly basis, so it's not like I'm not flying through it at super speed or anything.
Gotcha. So, but yeah, and then I started Something's Killing the Children. I have the first trade. I got about 3 issues in. I got to get back to it. So, but DC takes up the majority of my time.
Sure.
As it were.
Sure.
So.
All right, cool. That is the things. But we do have a couple of news things to talk about. Not comic book news things, but we do have a couple of other media to talk about. TV show up first, because we got a trailer for the new Batman animated series. Batman Caped Crusader is coming on August 1st from Amazon Prime, because Max didn't want it anymore, so Prime's putting it out. But fine,
Zaslav will pay for his crimes.
we still get it. It's fine. So yeah, got a new teaser trailer, and this is the one that we got. Obviously, Bruce Timm's working on it, but we also, I think, Ed Brubaker's in the writing credits for this one. So yeah, we got a look at it. What do you think of the trailer, Matt?
Yeah, so I didn't realize that's Kevin Conroy, right?
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Nope.
I was like, was this one of the last things he worked on before he passed? Because that voice is very Kevin Conroy.
I'll give you the names here. So Hamish Linklater is Bruce Wayne, Christina Ricci is Selena Kyle, Jamie Chung is Harley Quinn, McKenna Grace, Reed Scott, and John DiMaggio are also in it, but they've not specified who they're playing yet.
Wow. He sounds just like Kevin Conroy. Good on Hamish Linklater.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it looks good. I didn't realize it looked like, is it supposed to be taking place in the 40s, like 30s, 40s?
They're definitely going for that aesthetic even more than the original animated series was. But it is its own new show. It's not tied to any previous incarnation. What's interesting to me is I'm very curious if how episodic this is going to be, or is this going to have like a season-long arc that it's going through? I actually don't know. But they're dropping all, I think, 10 episodes on August 1st. Is that what I said?
Yes, August 1st.
Yeah. Yeah, I do kind of wish it was weekly, because I just prefer TV weekly.
It keeps saying, it's like, I didn't realize the Bear, so the new season of the Bear dropped this week.
Yeah.
And I thought that was weekly, and it's not. They dropped them all at one time. So I saw someone go, oh, I just watched it all. And I was like, oh, great. So, well, at least I have time now. I don't have to rush through it. But yeah, I like it better when it's weekly, because then it's more fun to talk about as it goes.
Yeah, because people can't get ahead, so you can be in the conversation a bit easier and know that people are alongside. I mean, I know people who like the binge method always say, well, why don't you just agree with like 2 or 3 friends to just watch it at the same pace? I'm like, that's never going to work. They're never going to stick to it, right?
I remember how stressed you were reviewing Daredevil when it was on Netflix with everybody.
Oh yeah,
and watching them. Yeah,
because I wanted to do it episode by episode, and like some people were like, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm watching it all as quickly as humanly possible." I'm like, "Well, fine then. I guess that's how it's happening."
Yeah.
So yeah, forcing people to watch it at a reasonable pace is not a bad thing in my my opinion.
No, I mean that's worked for what's X-Men 97. They were putting those out weekly, and it seemed to be in the cultural landscape way longer than I thought it would be.
Yeah, people were talking about it for 10 weeks or whatever it was, because it was people were anticipating the new episode. It builds some hype. It makes it more exciting. Anywho, this does look pretty good. I found myself really into it. It does feel like the closest to the original Batman the Animated Series in style since then. It feels like it's going for a slightly darker tone. Not that it'll be inappropriate for kids or anything like that, but just enough that it feels like, oh no.
It feels like the animated series got a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, right? But it has that sort of dark look to it, that sort of noir. So they're really leaning heavily into the 40s kind of style of like Batman's got he doesn't have purple gloves, but he's got like black gloves that look more like the old school Golden Age gloves than like your modern style. His
ears look a little bit longer, right?
Well, a bit more curved, I would say. They've got that sort of curve to them,
Catwoman looks like she's in her. That's why I asked if it was the 40s. It looks like her first appearance costume, but maybe that storyline type thing.
Yeah, the trailer does show you some glimpses of like their Two-Face, who looks again a little bit different, because he's got like he doesn't have like the sort of the strict color difference in his face. It's just kind of like burns on the other side.
Yeah, it's almost like his face was melting. Right, and it seems to be the opposite, because every time, usually when we see Two-Face, it's his left side. This time it was his right side, so that got me a little bit.
Yeah, they teased Penguin, they teased what I think was Clayface, and obviously there's a Harley Quinn, as we mentioned. So and she also looks very different. It's not your traditional animated series Harley Quinn.
I believe she called herself the Jester in that in the voiceover portion of the trailer.
Well, I don't know if she was calling herself Jester as if that was her name, or more, because she was basically using a metaphor of like the Jester's taking over the castle kind of thing. So I don't know if she was referring to herself as the Jester, but I don't know if she was saying that's her title.
Gotcha.
But I guess we'll find out. When the show hits.
No, it looks pretty good. I mean, I still have a soft spot for the animated series. It's I started watching it again. I'd say a couple months ago. And just comfort episodes, ones that I remember as a kid, and it still pretty much holds up for being like a 30-year-old show.
Yeah, it'll be
still pretty solid.
Interesting to see how this, because obviously the animated series got a HD remaster, and it looks quite good. And I know Mask of Phantasm got a 4K upgrade as well. But obviously that's coming from older elements. I'm very curious to see how the animation this is going to look, because it's a new show, so it'll be in 4K. It'll have the HDR and all the rest of it. So I'm curious to see how that style translates to the modern world, where we've got all these extra bells and whistles to really make it stick out. So, but no, it looks promising. It definitely does. So that is cool. And then the other bit of news is this is kind of follow up to something we did last week or the week before, which is we had the set photo of the Superman movie, and it was like just a newspaper. This week, bit more notable is that we've got a bunch of shots of Superman in costume on set. We even have Mr. Terrific in costume. Lois is kicking around as well there, but obviously you don't really have to talk about her outfit in the same way.
I mean, they've used her distinct purple jacket, which I am a fan of.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I will say this: the Superman outfit, now that we're seeing it without that super stylized lighting that was in that photograph, it does look nice and bright and colorful, which is great. I'm still not in love with the collar being there. I'd rather the cape was tucked in, but I will say it looks better than that photo presented it to begin with.
It looks in that setting, which are they're what's that called? Like candid, they're set photos where they're just kind of walking around and everyone's kind of at ease. It looks very natural, right? It looks like Superman. You don't have to focus on all the lines that I still think are too busy, kind of all over it and whatnot. But
yeah, the lines and sort of the chunkiness to the shoulder area look a bit much to me, but it does look better than it did that first photo. It's actually kind of insane that overly, I assume, very well
stylized
thought out photo where they put a lot of time and effort. Okay, what was the first image anyone's going to see of our Superman? We're going to sit and put a lot of work into it, and the thing they put out showed it in the worst possible light, and now we see it on set with just natural daylight, and it's like, oh, it actually looks like a Superman outfit now. So yeah, honestly, the belt and the trunk's actually kind of my favorite part of it, bizarrely. Not to just focus on his cock, but it just looks nice and bright and colorful, and because the last outfits in the movies didn't have that,
they're
it just
very
feels
drab.
It feels refreshing to see it that way.
And then we also kind of got a roll call of some of the Daily Planet staff, which I liked, which seems like they're going to have at least small roles in the movie as well. So
sure.
We get to see the first image of Cat Grant, which looks exactly like I thought she would, which is nice. So very, warming up to this more. I'm trying not to let myself get excited, but I trust James Gunn.
I mean, you're going to be excited. Let's face it. I mean, this is coming out summer 2025, currently scheduled, and then Supergirl, Women of Tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to use that title necessarily, but that's coming out planned for 2026. So somehow we've ended up in a world where we're getting two super movies back-to-back years. So we'll see how that works out. And I hope I'm excited for this. I hope I want to go see it, because not just the MCU that I've dipped out on for the last few years, but I've not even seen any of the DC movies from the last few years. I've just not wanted to. So I really hope this shakes things up and just looks like a good movie, because I would really like to be excited again. And I do wonder, actually, if me just avoiding all the superhero movies of the last few years will just help, because I'm not going to feel... I've given myself a break. I've not paid attention to them as much.
Here's the thing with at least the DC ones. They're very forgettable. So even if you have seen them, you'll forget about it.
I mean, the Marvel ones were pretty forgettable, the last several I saw too.
Yeah, but I don't want to always beat up on Marvel, But Shazam, I forgot that I've seen Fury of the Gods. I watched it at home, it was fine. I still haven't watched Aquaman 2, though. I don't feel like I can go through that. It seems like too much.
What about The Flash, Matt? You not watched The Flash yet?
Hell no. You'd have to pay me good money. We'd have to do a fundraiser like we did for Batman v Superman, the extended cut. Have to do some kind of fundraiser to get me to watch that.
Yeah. I need to be paid for that as well, frankly. So anyway, that is the news. We'll move on to the comics. We have a reasonable amount of them. So, Absolute Power Ground Zero issue 1, various creators. We'll talk about them as we go through, because it's split into 3 stories. I will say I was a little saddened when I started this and realized that the Wade story was actually Wade and Zarsky co-writing a story, and I was like, wait a minute. Well, Wade, who is the name that I was the most excited for in this book, is only co-writing one of the stories. That put me in a bit of a downer right away.
I believe Wade co-wrote all of the stories because he's also on the Dreamer story. It says by Wade and Maines.
You know what? I never even noticed it because his name wasn't first. You're right. Yep.
And then I believe the Williamson one is just him, I think. Let me double check.
Yeah, the Williamson one's just him, I think.
Yeah. I'm just going to the credit page. Yes. So yeah. Look, I like that Maines is able to write this character of Dreamer, but I've gotten way too much Dreamer in the last couple. And I'm not sure what exactly I know she does stuff with dreams, but I'm so unfamiliar with the character that when she does something here with like dream energy, I'm like, what is going on? You know? So, but that's mostly on me. But it's just weird how it seems how crucial Dreamer is going to be in this storyline.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing because I'm not that interested in the character enough to go read whatever one shot or mini. I think Dream Team's got editor's note in this say, hey, this happened in Dream Team issue 1 or whatever. So it's kind of strange. I also think it's a weird story to start this off on, but what's so funny about it is that the entire setup of this Dreamer part of the story or the event is that Amanda Waller is forcing her to work for her, right? And we find out in the opening story here that Jay, as in John Kent's, John Kent's boyfriend, he is on the run from some soldiers or from Suicide Squad even, and we find out that his mother was assassinated, and I'm like, wait, what? That happened? Okay, all right. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, maybe it was in this other book, and that's fine. But for me, this is relatively out of nowhere.
They keep pointing out too that Amanda Waller has taken over Gamora, the island. That was pretty crucial in that John Kent series.
Yeah, the country. The country that Jay's mom was the president of.
Yep. And so here, I just thought, she's, we see her falling out of the window, and then later in the book, we're like, she's like, and they killed my mom. And I was like, so we're going that far now.
I mean, even in the panel in the first page with it going out the window, I went, wait, is that implying she died? I think it is. And then later on, obviously, the narration box actually just says, they killed my mom.
But I was like, man, all the work that they did to re-put her in there, and Waller just said, nah. So I do like seeing Jay pop up. I hope, that was one of the things with the whole concept of the Truth website, right, and putting stuff into the light and wanting to kind of be this new age Lois Lane. I like that, and we've kind of lost him since the John book is no longer, is not around. So I'm glad that Wade and Maines decided to make him a central character. It seems like, at least in the story.
Yeah, I just think it would have felt like a much more shocking thing for this first story to set up this event if it had been the story of her being assassinated, because it feels like such a big thing for me to find out in the past tense, like, oh, by the way, this happened. Yeah. And we're instead following this Jay part of the story. I just think that, well, I assume it happened in this Dream Team book. I think that's maybe what the editor's note was about. I just feel like if you actually started this prelude to the event with that, I'd be like, shit, that's a character that the entire Superboy or Superman John Kent miniseries spent building up, was a big part of that. Everything in that story was about reinstating her and saving her from the villains that were taking over the country.
From Bendix, not Bendis.
Very good, man. We're all very thrilled with your memory, okay? Right? I just feel like if that was the start of this, I would have been like, oh, that's kind of shocking they did that. That feels like a big deal that they've killed her. But by starting after she's been killed and having the character just reference it, I just went, wait, what? That happened? That feels like you just threw her away. Like, why is it not? Why is that not in the event or in this, I guess, issue 0 prelude to the event as it is? It just felt like it kind of wasted it in a weird way.
Yeah. Well, and I trust Wade But that's what I'm starting to feel with this absolute power. Like, a lot of this stuff that we're getting to, and we'll get to it when we talk to Superman later, I feel a lot of these stories are rushing to conclusions to start absolute power. And then it's also absolute power is picking up those threads for whatever reason. And so I'm feeling like here we rush through this entire Gamora thing because, again, maybe it is happening in Dream Team. We're not reading that book. So, but I just feel like stuff's happening very quickly to set up the status quo that's going to be in the event. And that's not very fulfilling storytelling for me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the last prelude we got for this that set up what Waller was up to, I thought was solid. And that was just Wade writing that. And I think that was fine. I'm not, like, nothing I'm saying here is making me even remotely concerned for enjoying the actual event. Because the actual event, I expect I'm going to like because Mark Wade's writing it.
And Dan Moore is drawing it.
Yeah.
So it'll just be pretty.
I have no hesitation or like negative feelings going into the actual event book itself. I just feel like this prelude and the things that the way it's like formatted this, and maybe it's just down to the fact that DC wanted this other miniseries going on, so they put this big assassination in there.
Yeah.
But just finding out in the past tense that Jay's mum has already been killed just made it feel like she was a nothing character that was thrown away, and it makes it feel smaller than it actually should. So
yeah,
you know, I think that should have been in here. That should have been part of the story here if you were going to put it here. Otherwise, all you're really setting up in this book is that Jay finds out that Dreamer was part of the team that killed his mom and now hates her, and now Dreamer is feeling all, you know, conflicted about that, but she's forced into it because all her loved ones are being threatened by Waller, and at the end has this sort of look in her eyes that suggests that she's planning to like resist Waller in some way, but obviously the time's not right yet. But it was kind of strange because I feel like whenever you get to a story where like the main characters had to have done something really bad, and the other character that they care about finds out and like then hates them because, oh, you had a part in the death of my mother in this case, but it could be, you know, anything. Normally, we're so in with the main character by that point that we can sort of like feel this sense of sympathy, and we can really be in their shoes. But again, because the assassination of Jay's mom didn't happen in this story, it happened in some other series we're not reading, I can't feel that feeling. I don't know what the build up to. I don't know how Waller's manipulated Dreamer into doing this. I don't know, like, all the ways that Dreamer tried to resist, but then ultimately it was all futile and she felt she was pushed into a corner where she had to help. Or what her reaction was when she presumably didn't know it was going to be an assassination and then found out when the murder actually happened. Oh shit, I've just helped with an assassination and I know who Jay is. Like, those moments would mean a lot to like building up this sense of guilt and like this understanding that she was in a place that she couldn't do anything else, and we could feel something for that. But because most of that wasn't in this story, I felt this weird just disconnection from it, where Jay now hates this other character who's recurring, so he's just all in this ultra dark, like really depressing place. And Dreamer's in this ultra dark, depressing place, and I just don't feel like I've gotten a story for either of them where I've had a chance to build up to it, where I can really feel like I'm engrossed in it. Instead, it just kind of feels like, okay, you've set these pieces up for the event, but like, I'm not feeling much of anything here. I don't know. It's tough to pull the story that it's trying to tell here, or particularly the character dynamic that it's trying to pull off here with Dreamer. It does feel like, yeah, the whatever miniseries they're in right now seems essential to actually caring, but unfortunately I just had no interest in reading that because, well, I don't think Nicole Main's writing is bad. It doesn't excite me either. So I've left feeling ambivalent towards this first chapter. How did you feel about it overall?
A lot of the same feelings. Again, I like seeing Jay show up and, you know, the Dreamer being at odds with all this, and then you find out that the whole, you know, Waller uses people. That's what she does, but she's not going to let, you know, that's all very typical. That's a very Suicide Squad, you know, that's not every Suicide Squad story, but it's what I expect in those. So just kicking this off like that did not endear me to what's going on here. And it's mostly because I don't care about Dreamer that much. Like, I forgot that we were first introduced to Dreamer in the pages of the John Kent book, right? And that's why Jay's familiar with her.
Yeah, I didn't remember that either.
Yeah, there's an editor's note in here, about, when she showed up at the Fortress of Solitude and whatnot. Yeah, but like it's fine. I again, including Jay here, and for what he represents about, raging against the machine and whatnot. It's not that he'll be a foil for Waller, but him being involved even in the slightest adds a little bit of an edge to that. So
so weird starting off point. And I get that it's a weird complaint in some respects because comic books have always done this where maybe you'll feel left out of certain plot details because you weren't enjoying or reading the other book that some of these major events happened in. But it did leave me off in a weird place to start off, especially since it was the first story in this book. If this had been third, maybe it wouldn't have bothered me so much, but I felt like it alienated me right away with this. The second story is called Stage 2. It's the Chip Zdarsky and Mark Waid co-written story. Zdarsky's here because it loosely relates to Failsafe, but it's actually about how Amanda Waller has resurrected Time Commander with his magic hourglass. And this one worked better for me because it was more of a story from start to finish where, okay, we introduced us to this character. And I barely know Time Commander. This is not someone I know.
It said that he died in Urban Legends 23, which that book's been done for a minute, right?
Yeah. No idea who this guy is really. But it didn't really matter because, okay, we set up that he's got this time thing, but she wants him to use his magic hourglass to repair Failsafe because Failsafe's been defeated and she wants to use it for her own goals. We know that this is going to happen because we've seen Failsafe and some of the other things leading up to the event. So he basically stalls and tries to figure out a way to do something, right? And he doesn't want to go through with it because he looks into the hourglass and sees what Amanda Waller's future is and what her goals are, and he's shocked and horrified. So I thought that did a good job of teasing okay, what she's up to is devious and it's going to be shocking if she goes through with it. So he can't help her. So he ultimately tries to trick his guard to take him to the storage room for all the tools because he needs some stuff. And he tries to fight his way out. He tries to build a weapon and get his hourglass to time travel somewhere else, right? To teleport out of the place. But the little trick ending here, your sort of Twilight Zone style ending, is that he teleports back into his cell, and then Amanda Waller comes in as a TV shows a live feed of him talking to Waller the day that she started him on this job, and she comes walking in with the same cup of coffee and says, "Okay, I was just done talking to the past version of yourself. We basically rigged all your tech so that you would only teleport back to here. So now your week starts again. You're going to keep working on this until it's done." And yes, that's it.
We're on to you, time travelers. I like that. This was very much an Amanda Waller. That made me chuckle. Her waiting right there, going from one room to the other.
Yeah.
And I thought that was funny.
It was a fun twist. It was obviously very cruel from Waller. And it, again, this is kind of what I was getting at with not feeling that sense of Dreamer had no choice in being involved in Jay's mum's death, is that here, this set up why this character has no choice, because he does his best to escape and it loops him back round. Waller's thought of everything, shit, I have to actually finish this to get away.
And it also showed that Waller's changing up her stuff as well, because she said that they didn't even know his hourglass worked on dead bodies. And that's now why they're going to try it on the robot, on the android. So it's well, what else is she playing with, right? Now, because it seems this could be, chronal energies, science fiction-y stuff, but also is it doesn't rule out magic on top of that as well.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, that I think makes this work as well is just that in this character's narration, we get him, when he fixes failsafe, his narration reads, "God forgive me." So unlike Dreamer in the first story, we really get a sense that he is horrified at what he's been a part of. So I do think a lot of this goes a long way to making the story work. Also, Waller wants him to work on a bunch of Amazo-looking robots.
So this is what I'm guessing has to do with, we'll have the failsafe Batman, but I have a feeling these are the replacement heroes that we've heard about in those not miniseries, but the one shots.
Yeah, the tie-ins,
right?
yeah.
the tie-ins that are coming out. So I'm wondering if this army of Amazos, they're going to get more specified going forward. This one was a lot more, I don't want to say fulfilling again, but it was a lot more, this is what I was expecting in an issue like this.
It explained the detail in a fun little story with a twist that also, again, built up the idea that, oh, Waller's doing something really bad. Whatever she's trying to do in this event, it's a big deal. It sold you on that. So, I think this middle story was a much better story out of the two we've talked about so far.
Yep.
The third story, called Stage 3, is Joshua Williamson with Gleb Melnikov, on art. And this is actually, I read this first, right, which is a bit awkward because it kind of follows on from the two Superman issues, but regardless, it basically mirrors Superman's ship leaving Krypton, but it's a small ship leaving the Brainiac ship as it explodes, and it's actually the Brainiac Queen landing on Earth, but she is an empty husk. She doesn't have, like...
she's an empty vessel. So
Failsafe's there with Waller for this landing, and Amanda Waller wants to, like, turn her into one of hers. So the chunk of this last story, which I thought was quite compelling, is that basically they program into Brainiac Queen a childhood and, like, a history. So Brainiac Queen remembers being a child, even though she never was a child, but she remembers Amanda Waller as her mother, and we see, like, just all these, like, quick examples of Amanda Waller explaining that aliens are bad, that metahumans are bad, that these superheroes are dangerous. She has Superman looking like a villain, and she fires a kryptonite gun at him. And it's all just to show and train and brainwash this Brainiac Queen into thinking it's a loyal child to Amanda Waller. So it's fun.
Said that this is the most compelling the Brainiac Queen had been.
Yes, that's the thing. This made me forget that stupid like ultra like monster form she had. So when I started reading Action after this, and I saw the big like bulky version, I went, "Oh God, I forgot about this stupid like doomsday looking version of her." Oh dear.
Well, and I like here the pathos too of the old Waller, right? Like in this programming, what did she say? It's like 20
years.
How many years? 20 years goes by in 20 hours. But so to the Brainiac Queen, Waller is aged, and it adds like a humanity to the Brainiac Queen that she thinks she's doing this all for mom.
Yeah, this is like genuinely one of the best things Williamson has written in such a long time, and I almost wonder if the fact that he just has to get one point across to set up something in the event like is helping, because Wade's given him a Bible and said this is where these characters need to be.
I wish he would find the balance. Because I feel like Williamson has good ideas that other people can jump off of, or he can jump onto other people's ideas. When they're fully just him and he can just go off on it, that's where it gets murky. Almost he gets too excited to do everything,
Murky is a very kind word for that, Matt. A very kind word.
Yes, I was being nice. But knowing that Wade is like, hey, I need Brainiac Queen to have like this loyalty to Waller, and I need it to happen like this for the sake of the story or whatever. And Williamson going, oh yeah, no, I got you. And I like that it ends, because I read the Superman stuff first. That's what I jumped on with. So the fact that this starts up as that issue ends, with the ship that looks like it's leaving Krypton and stuff, I thought that was very clever. So, you can jump from one to the other.
Amanda Waller, I mean, it even looks like they're staying at a farmhouse in this like fake memory. This is basically this kid's Kent farm. And Waller's her man Pa Kent.
Yeah, well, that's also the Sanctuary House, which pays off threads from Green Arrow, where that's what the Sanctuary place looked like. We know that she used the Sanctuary technology here to reprogram the Brainiac Queen, too. So, like, it's making all these pieces fit that, at least that I've been reading through Green Arrow and all these other books, and so to see when that farmhouse showed up, I was like, oh, not only does it resemble the Kent house, but that's also the Sanctuary house that I know people have gone out of their way to forget about, but it's here now. It's also part of that.
I mean, I'd happily forget about it, but to be fair, the reason why the Sanctuary house looks like the Kent farm is because that was the point at the time. Yes. So it still just ultimately just looks like the Kent house.
True. But the fact that that's that she went out of her way to go get the Sanctuary thing it wasn't just a power grab. There's a purpose, and it feels like she's going to try to reprogram people, things, whatever. So it's like now when she rips the powers from the heroes that we've seen in the previews or whatever, that leads to absolute power. Is she adding this stuff to these Amazo robots, right? Because we know the Zernar failsafe, that kind of failed because it couldn't coexist, but failsafe, as we know, is just failsafe, right? It doesn't have the Bruce trauma of Zernar.
You mean this failsafe she's using?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
I assume there's no Zernar in there, yes.
Right. So I'm wondering, too, if now she's going to, manage through some of these Amazo bots, like the Flash one has, the death of Iris West or whatever the trauma, not Iris, the death of all the Wally stuff that caused the story that we don't talk about. I wonder if that's going to get programmed into these Amazo robots, and that's where it's going to go. That's how it forms them. And this was just the Brainiac Queen was just the prototype going forward.
Yeah. So yeah, the issue ends with Waller like getting up out of like a VR chair and being like, okay, that was a successful 20-hour like thing, and then Brainiac Queen comes walking in. Looking better than she did in the Superman books because she's got like a cloak on now and she doesn't have that big bulky look. She's just the skinny version. But she's like, yes, mother, let's save the world. And Waller's like, of course, my dear. So, I think the middle story and the last story do a good job of setting up some excitement for the event. I don't know if I like any of them quite as much as that other story we had, and like, was it the Free Comic Book Day thing? Maybe.
Yes.
We got the setup for all this, but I do think these two stories did a good job. I think the Dreamer one's a bit more murky because it, like I say, I really didn't like this idea that like the main part of it felt like it happened before the story started, and it felt like it was thrown away, like something we spent a whole arc reading about. So, that was a bit of a shame, but. These other two stories I think did a decent job. I don't think this is going to end up being super essential reading, but knowing how Waller's programmed the Brainiac Queen for her own bidding is interesting. It kind of makes me think that the Brainiac Queen in the Superman books only existed because this was going to be a thing here. And I'm not saying that that's on anyone necessarily, because I don't think that would have been forced on Williamson. I think this is an example, I think, of, okay, the person at the center, in this case Mark Waid, has laid out what the event's going to be, and obviously he's talked it over with the other people who are writing other books, and they're all going to try and incorporate some elements of it and whatever. I think this is a case of, I'm probably going to like this event, I'm probably going to like what Mark Waid does with it, but there's no accounting for the fact that people writing other books tying into it are going to be of varying quality, depending on who you like out of those writers. And so I think just, Williamson is just never going to be that exciting to me. But, I mean, this story was fine, though. I can't fault this. Conceptually, this was fine.
When he has a focus, this stuff is a pleasure to read.
Or when he only has, 8-10 pages, he can't.
That could be too.
He doesn't have enough time to screw it up.
That's true. But I also enjoyed the majority of his Robin run, where it was very focused on Robin and the tournament and all that other stuff.
Sure,
so,
sure.
So it is possible. I just, but yeah, I was, not that I was shocked, but the back two, after that first story, I was like, oh man, it's another one of these, extra, lead-in things.
Yeah,
the back two stories, I feel, made it worth the purchase.
I was worried with that first story that I was going to get to the end of this and feel like it was just one of those anthology books that I was mad that I spent time reading. Luckily, the other two, it led with its weakest story, and that was the strangest part of it, I thought. But regardless, not bad. I guess we'll rate this. I know we didn't really talk about the art much because the art was different in all three stories, but what are you giving Absolute Power Ground Zero?
So, because it was a mixed bag, and it was up and down, I'm going to give this a 6.5.
Yeah. I actually think I'm going to go. I'm going to go with a 7 because I think I think the middle story and the backstory do enough to add a little bit, some layers to what's coming up in the event, but the first story obviously is the blemish that's bringing it down. So I'll go 7. I'm feeling generous, I guess, but that is that. Next up, Detective Comics 1086, Ram V writing with Stefano Rafael on the art. So, yeah, a lot of exciting things going on here. Batman's back in town, of course, and he is beating up a crap load of people at the start of the issue. It turns out it's Two-Face's men, and he's here to speak to Harvey. He wants to talk to Harvey because, well, various reasons. He's wanting help from various people to try and take back the city. But I think what really got me here was kind of Bruce saying that his experience with the asthma has kind of made him appreciate what Harvey goes through, and the fact, because Two-Face even mentions that Harvey's still got the asthma attached to him, and that's partly why Two-Face is been allowed to take over. Obviously, he made the deal to save Batman, but that's one of the elements of it. And I thought that was an interesting thing. It was an interesting way for me to tie what the asthma does to people and how Batman had to fight it off, comparing that to how Harvey has to fight off the Two-Face personality and has done throughout the history of Batman, makes it feel like, oh, this didn't need this, but it's kind of nice that Ram V's found a way to sort of like tie that thematically into something that's been a part of Batman since like the 50s, the 60s, whenever Two-Face first appeared in Batman comics.
Well, and it makes it feel sincere too, that it's not just a split personality, they're two distinct personalities. Right now Harvey's tussling with the asthma, and Two-Face is allowed to take over, and Bruce being like, man, that's gotta be so exhausting to be you. And he almost has that new appreciation. And because that's where he tells him, it was, as for the demon, where he's talking about that, where'd it go? I lost my point of thought on this one. It was about the memories that it was pulling away, when he was fighting it in the desert and whatnot. And the fact that it was an impossible task that Harvey just gets up and deals with every day. I thought that was Ram V really going out of his way to show that there's still not a friendship or anything, but there's still almost like this admiration that Bruce has for Harvey Dent.
I mean, I think for me, it's just a case of adding some depth to the villains that have been here for so long by making it feel like you can relate some current stories to like what they are at their core. So I really like that. I also really like one of the themes of this issue is this idea that, the Argums have tried to sort of mask the dark side of Gotham to make everyone I think Batman compares it to putting on a mask. Like there's a Joker does as well, actually, when we get to him. But this idea that these new villains have put a mask over Gotham and everyone's not seeing the ugly underneath. And Batman's saying here, we don't want to separate the city from the darkness. We have to, embrace the darkness, and me and you are part of the darkness of Gotham City, for better or worse. So,
yeah, and I love it that it's almost like Gotham's fighting back against the reality engine. It's putting Batman and Two-Face and
that's what
respectively Joker on the same side.
Matt, that's what we've been saying for 12, 18 issues at this point, is the idea that the entire city, all the good and the bad parts of it, are going to work together, whether or not they're intentionally working together or not. They're all going to work together in essence to fight back against what the Argums are doing. Really good. And the final note here that I really liked was Two-Face says, you need my help, or his meaning Harvey, and Batman says, I will need your help, but Gotham will need all of us. I thought that was a really nice sort of just exclamation point on the scene that really drove that idea home, that Gotham needs all of its characters, all of its rogues gallery, all of its heroes to fight back against this fake thing that's tried to take over the city. So that was a great scene. I really liked this opening scene. So moving on, we're introduced again to Duella Dent, who is jogging, and we find out that she's living in a little apartment over the house of an old couple, and she's doing well. She's going out for a jog every day. She's being healthy, and this couple's kind for taking her in, given what her past is. And in walks the Joker from the background to sit down on the bench next to her and starts asking her questions about the couple that she's living with. And Basically, he's trying to like convince her, "Hey, you remember when you wore my old face?" And he even whips it out by the end of the end of the scene. He whips out his old leather face.
Yeah, that thing is weathered. Like ooh, I don't want to know where he's been keeping it, but wherever it is, it's very dry because it's still in pretty good shape.
Yeah, obviously, I'm not happy that Joker implies that he put a cat in the microwave for obvious reasons, but. The point he's saying is that, hey, they're going to think that was you that did that when they find their cat in the microwave, and he's basically trying to convince her to like be her old villainous self again, and to be like the colorful character again. And what I kind of like about this is how much this mirrors the opening scene with Batman and Two-Face. This is Joker, just like Batman, coming to like an old, allies, maybe a bit of a. Yeah, acquaintance, yeah, sure.
Yeah, because she was known as Joker's daughter, right? That's right, yeah. Name. So, coming to her and awakening that darkness. Whereas it felt like Bruce was more like saying, "Hey, we need to use the darkness, for light." Joker's like, "Nah, embrace this. Remind them who we are." It's a nice.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that it's effectively working for the same end goal. It's to take the city back from this new threat that's trying to like erase the underbelly, all the good parts of it and all the bad parts of it. So I love that Selina's conversation when she went to see Joker last couple issues has resulted in this, where he's effectively inspiring some people to go be Gotham villains again, to help fight back against it. I really like that. And the payoff later, we'll just talk about it now, is when we get the page later where, she's like sitting next to the dead old couple. She's killed them both. And she's like, as soon as they found the cat, they looked at me and they thought it was my fault. Like, they didn't even have to say it. That was the first thing they thought of, is that it was me. So she's sitting there like a serial killer with a mask on.
Well, and also, I like the idea that Selina told Joker, is like, the Orgrims think that you ate shit. So why don't you go show them? And he's like, challenge accepted.
Yeah, which is all fine and well, except it's led to the death of this innocent elderly couple.
Well, and Mr. Skittles, because you don't put Skittles in the microwave. I mean, that's rule number one.
But no, I love this though, because it's the demented flip side of like Joker doing what Batman just did for someone else, and I love that pairing of these two scenes back to back. Especially since Joker hasn't been this big fixture in this run. Like, he only really popped up when Selina went to see him. So it was almost like, here's the hidden part of the city, the most demented part of the city that's now been unleashed because we need to pull out all the guns. We need to do everything we can against the Argons. So, I really like this scene quite a bit. So, it's 2 for 2, this book so far for me in scenes.
Gosh, she's gonna show up with that, and there's also the theme of masks, right? Because not only does the whole mask of Joker's daughter or whatever, but Bruce also holds up the mask that Harvey was wearing, for the asthma that the Organs gave him, and so here that's also the idea of masks, like that's the undercurrent of this issue, of what is the true face? Is it the mask or is it the face underneath? And
then we get a scene with Gordon talking to
Montoya,
and basically saying, "Hey, we got evidence that the Organs have bought up all this property. They're behind all this stuff in the city." I love as well that he says he's got some sources digging deeper, and there's a panel of him just sort of standing over Bab's shoulder as she's doing her Oracle stuff. And I just like that he looks so proud in that panel. He looks like a proud dad that his daughter's like this whiz with computers and is doing like better detective work than maybe he's ever done. But he's like, "Hey, we got sources," and then she's like, you got sources that got this information before the entire building like blew up into a bat shape.
A bat-shaped explosion.
And basically it just reiterates this idea that like, no, I'm here to tell you this because I want you to not be blindsided when all this stuff comes out, but you're starting to understand in this job why we need him, why we need the bats in Gotham, because someone needs to get the hands dirty in a way that we can't when we're in this job.
Yep.
So that's really good.
I love that too, because he's like, so you finally see, right? Like, so it also is the mentor, student kind of thing between these two. Because I think because when Montoya, correct me if I'm wrong, when she was in Gotham Central, she wasn't a big fan of Batman. She was part of the cops that were like, he makes it harder for us to do our jobs, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so the fact that here now that she's sitting on the other part of that chair, being like, oh, so that's this is why you were lenient on him, is because of stuff like this. I like that.
Yeah, and then Batman is off to see the 10-eyed man, which, fun. Basically, he wants him. The 10-eyed man pays so much attention to Gotham that he sees patterns. He sees, the things in the design that no one else can see, and that's what he's there for. And again, he talks about how this like grasp of power. It's like, hey, there's these pieces of the puzzle that the powers that be try to remove, and it shows you a panel of Batman hanging, and then right after that is JFK getting shot, and I'm like, I don't think it's necessarily implying that the Origins did that, but I think it's implying this idea of like seizing, or changing things with power plays.
Yeah, because it's also the assassination of Gandhi, it looks like.
Yeah.
Right, and then 10-eyed man. I don't know what the one on the bottom is. It looks a lot older.
I'm pretty sure that's the Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
But okay. So yeah. So this whole thing, because he says at the top of the page, his patterns, and Gotham, they didn't forget you. They took you out.
Just for those who don't know, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, when he was assassinated, that was the domino that started World War One. Just for context.
All because he wanted to go through a military parade. And the guy that shot him was happening to get a sandwich at the time.
Yes.
Yes. But anyways, 10-eyed man's talking about that. It wasn't that Gotham forgot about you; is they removed you. Like a piece from a puzzle, but there was always something missing. They could feel it, right? And that's a lot like this with Batman and the reverberations of JFK and Gandhi and Franz Ferdinand. And it just shows how much of a central figure. That missing piece is, and how altering it, how it can change reality going forward.
Yeah, they can feel the whole effectively. And then next, Mummy Orgum basically says that her reanimated son, he's going to be Shadow Angel, and he's going to be like, we're going to give them a villain, someone who they can like take down. I think, because she explains this to her, her entourage, the other family members. And we see like just like a city street on fire and shadow angels at the center of it, and we see that this is happening because we hear like a news report saying, "Hey, some villain calling himself Shadow Angels doing all this." And he's monologuing and whatnot during it all. So the final scene of I think it's the final scene anyway of the issue is like, so we see all this fire in the distance, and Batman's on a rooftop with Cassandra Cain, Batgirl, Azrael. And then Nightwing shows up saying, "Hey, it looks like you could need a hand." And he's happy to see them. I honestly, Cass just saying "I missed you" as she's perched on the rooftop with the fire like behind her is just such a nice moment. But so basically, it's like it's the call to action. It's them like, okay, while I was gone, you guys were keeping up the fire alive, as it were. Yeah,
and we knew that Azrael from the backups, Azrael and Cass were both maintaining the presence of the bat. And then so the fact that these two are there, and then Dick, who is his son, right? He's the next generation too. I like how they assemble and what that means for Gotham.
For sure. And it feels like a very like 90s, early 2000s like team here. Because you've got Cass and Nightwing. I mean, Azrael was a bit earlier because he was during Nightfall, but it's making me think of that era a little bit. So there's a glorious full page spread of them all diving off the rooftop. Very, very pretty. I think the primary color kind of thing that's going here with like Batman's got the red logo on him now. You've got Dick with the blue, and then very subtle, but Cass has got the yellow bat outline. So it's just like a nice sort of primary color thing going. And then the final page is what we already talked about with Duella Dent. Do you know what I want to say about this Duella Dent stuff as well? This is a great example of something that I didn't care for because it was a part of the New 52. But this scene that introduced her here was so compelling with the way the Joker entered the scene and just convinced her to become a killer again that like I'm on board. This is a very, very good use of something from DC's like recent past that I don't care about, and like the writer making me give a shit. So Ram V's doing a really good job here of taking something from the vault. And this happens every so often in comic books where, not everything in decades and decades of comic books can be something that I've either read or like, but the idea of reintroducing an element of it, but making it work for me now, like, okay, for me, this is always going to be how I think of like her coming in. Obviously, there's the backstory. I'm not ignoring that, but to me, the start of the real story with her is always going to feel like this to me, and I think that's cool.
Well, when we first see her, she's running, right? She's jogging.
Yes.
But in effect, she is running from her past, and that's what that's representing. So the fact here that she embraces that past that we saw her running from because of a little bit of a tip from the Joker, I thought was really cool. Now, because I read too many comics and everything blends together. Did they send the Sun Orgum to be reanimated by the Al Ghuls, or is this different magic? Like, is this even him?
It's him. No, I remember there'd been a scene where they had his body last issue. Or maybe it was 2 issues ago. But they definitely got his body out, though, and they were doing something with it.
Okay, because I thought Talia had taken his body.
Oh, now you're saying that. I think that sounds right. I think she did have her body. Maybe they got it back last issue. But I definitely remember like them having his body there.
Because the fact here that he's wearing that mask, that we saw him last in, and he's wearing that suit of armor, and it just seems like they bring up Crane, right? The last issue ended with them bringing in Scarecrow. Yeah,
which Batman kind of figures out they might be using him this issue.
Yes.
I think it's when it's our 10-eyed man or Two-Face says something about them using fear, and Batman's like, oh, Crane's unaccounted for. He's missing from Arkham or whatever.
Yeah. So it's just with everything that's going on with this Shadow Angel, something feels off. Like maybe it's not the Organ kid. Maybe it's somebody pretending, and this is what this is what they originally intended for him before he flipped, right? And they were forced to kill him. So
I mean, it could be literal or otherwise a mask, because that's the theme of the issues.
Right.
Also, I do like that the final panel is a POV shot. The two final panels actually are a POV shot of Duella Dent. And it's her putting on the mask from like a POV. So in an issue where the theme of the whole issue has been masks, I love that the final panel is like the shot of just the mask coming towards the reader. Like we ourselves are putting on a mask at the end of the issue. So again, really well crafted issue of a comic book. It does well to basically string a bunch of scenes together because effectively this is a setup issue. It's just kind of setting the stage for what's coming next. But it's a very fulfilling issue despite that, because it does a good job of thematically making every scene feel like it belongs together. So it's very fulfilling as a whole as a result. And I think that's very impressive, because it'd be very easy for this to feel like, oh, it's a fine issue, but it's just moving a bunch of things around so we can have our big stuff next time. But it's actually, it's so good that the payoff next issue may not even be quite as good as this issue, because I think this issue is so well put together. And that's not a negative. Like, that's a good challenge for next issue. By all means, try and top it. I welcome it. Do your best. But this is such a good, well-constructed issue that it's basically full marks for me. The art throughout is very stylized. It's very dark and moody. I love the way the Joker walks out of the tree line in the background in that scene where he comes to see Dent. In fact, hell, I never even said this, but it's literally like, not only does the two scenes mirror each other at the start, with Batman and Joker coming to see someone and giving them a mask, they're both dense. Yeah, just realizing that as I say it that way. So that stuff looks great. I love the glow of the warm light in the fire towards the end. All that stuff's good. Like, honestly, I'm finding it hard to fault much in this issue. I guess the only thing I could really say is that there's some artists that I consider favorites, and this is not one of them, but it's very, very, very good art. So.
Oh yeah, I like Rafaele. That's what it is, Rafaele. Rafaele. Yeah, I like the art a lot. I mean, sometimes the faces get a little bit, so like Bruce's face there on that big splash page at the end it's a little bit, but it's playing with shadows and whatnot. But yeah, I think the art's pretty solid throughout in this one.
Yeah. All right. There is a backup, right?
Yes. Did you read it?
I believe I did. Yep, I did. Yes, I did.
Okay. Habeas corpus.
I went back to an earlier page, so it took me a minute there to cycle back. So this is Alex Packnadel and Lisandro Esterin on the art. This is a Two-Face story about one of Two-Face's men is basically made a mistake. He get caught taking some money from a deal that he was making with another gang. So Two-Face is coming down to this basement where his boys have already roughed him up, and he's going to execute him right there. He explains that, hey, if you got out, like, this other gang would probably come find you and beat you up and make you tell them everything you know about our gang, so I have to kill you. But just as he goes to do it, this is where Harvey's voice comes in and starts arguing with Two-Face, effectively. And I love what they did here, where at first it's sort of like Two-Face's speech bubbles are just normal, but then when Harvey says something to him, Two-Face's speech bubbles become red, right? And then one of the things it does later that I really like is that it does the sort of the connected speech bubbles, and it starts off a white speech bubble, but then it fades to red for the next bubble. And I thought, oh, that's a really neat way of showing it's coming from the same mouth. But it does this whole visualization thing where Harvey and Two-Face basically give this kid a trial in his head where he's arguing to and against, like, why he should be killed or not. But yeah, that's basically what most of the issue is. And ultimately, Harvey wins the case. I mean, at least he wins the case that it should be left to the toy and costs, at the very least.
Yes, he wins the argument between himself.
Yes.
Yes, and then of course it leads to the coin flip, and I just like everything that goes here because it leans into a lot of legal like jargon, but Packnadel makes it work because it's the framing of Dent explaining it to his to the other thugs around him.
Well, even the imaginary courthouse is split in two, with like a normal side and then like a side that looks all diseased and like warted or whatever.
And then Two-Face himself is the judge, right? So like it's
Two-Face is the judge, and the two lawyers are a full Harvey and a full Two-Face, I guess.
Yep. Yes. And yeah, so when it comes to the coin flip, and I also love that we never see what it lands on. We get the reaction from the other thugs that were there, so I think that's a lot of fun. Basically it comes up clean side. So he tells him, you do this to take care of your mom, so let's take care of you, and you never come back to Gotham because I'll make it look, whatever we were going to do would look like a sweet release.
Yeah, you have to go on the run, stay away from Gotham, but you can live. I also like that Harvey, when he first pops in, not only did he do this thing where he's kind of popping in from the side of the frame and it's kind of like a mirror image kind of effect, he looks a lot like the animated series version of Harvey, I thought.
Yep.
They really sort of modeled it after him, so...
Yeah, well, because then if you look at the regular Harvey in the courtroom scenes, that is the animated series version pre-Scar.
Yeah, pre-Two-Faceization, yes.
Yeah.
And there's like a brief reference at the end where he's like, hey, we need every soldier we've got for all this like organ stuff that's happening, because he says, we're going to war, so so fair enough. It's a fine little backup that just sort of delves a bit more into Two-Face, having an inner debate with himself. But no, that's interesting. I mean, it is interesting because as far as we knew right now, Harvey was basically just asleep whilst Two-Face was at the wheel. This does still imply that Harvey is talking to Two-Face though, and internally still. So.
At least in things like this, right? Almost like he has to rationalize things, and he gets back into his lawyer brain. Because he wants to do what's fair, which is what the whole coin flip is, right?
Yeah. So, it was a solid little backup. Art's a little on the messier side for the backup, but it kind of works with the Two-Face kind of perception of it all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, what are you rating Detective Comics?
I'm gonna give this a 9. I thought this issue was really good.
Yeah, I'm going with a 9 as well. I thought it was excellent. Yeah. Thematically, everything linked. Art was solid. Got me hyped for the next issue. Enjoyed several character beats. Even little things like the little flashback panel with Gordon and Babs, or like Cassie's a little interjection towards the end. All great stuff. So 9 out of 10. All right, Action Comics 1066, and to be honest, also Superman 15, because like they're parts 5 and 6 of a story, and I don't see how we can possibly talk about each of them individually when we've read them together. So Action Comics is Joshua Williamson and Rafa Sandoval and Miguel Medonca. Superman is Williamson writing, of course, and just Rafa Sandoval in art. So Medonca's only helping on action, I guess.
Yep.
So, yeah, so we've wrapped up this arc, this House of Brainiac arc, and we can get into how we felt by the end of it. Obviously, it started off fairly reasonable, and we kind of lost its way in the middle. I don't think anything here at the end sort of brought it back to its high point again, I would say.
No, I forgot that they killed the Zardians at the end of the last part.
So you started this issue and you're like, well, there's a bunch of dead Zardians here. What's going on?
Yeah, and with Superman yelling, you killed them, Brainiac. And I was like, oh, man. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, the big thing for me is that when it got to the panel at the bottom of that first page and you see the big Hulk Doomsday version of Brainiac Queen, I was like, oh, I forgot she had this other form. Oh, I was happy I'd forgotten this.
Yeah.
Rough times. So, yeah, I mean, Lobo pops out and he's mad at Brainiac, of course.
I do like, he's like, I finally found a bunch of people that weren't, yes, they were a-holes, but they were my kind of a-holes. And you got rid of them, now you got to deal with me. I kind of did like that.
Yeah, I think what's weird for me about all this last couple of issues here is that basically it's like, okay, now Superman and Lobo have to take on Brainiac Queen, and eventually some other Super Family members jump in and help as well. But I just kind of felt like, you've just told me that she wiped out like hundreds of Zarnians on her own, and I get that Superman is powerful, but I just like
Lobo and him fight to a standstill, right?
Yeah,
and she just killed a city's worth of them. And also I don't understand, because she's not consuming them, right? I don't understand how this is powering her up.
It just is.
Yeah, it just is. And I don't understand that, because at least I could see if he's like, well, the Zarnians and their regenerative properties, right? That's going to keep her energy going in this form or whatever. But it's just like, the whole plan is for her to consume everything. And I don't know if that comes out in Superman or in Action, because we're doing them together. But that's ultimately Brainiac's plan. He's just going to keep feeding her these bottled cities and then eventually planets and whatnot. And essentially, Brainiac essentially is becoming Galactus, but without the cool helmet.
Well, Brainiac Queen is, because Brainiac might actually eventually die, or at the very least, he can't really consume all of the knowledge he wants anymore. Yes. That's the thing it gets to, is that it's too much for him to. So he's built a wife, a predecessor, or not predecessor, a successor. Sorry, is the word I was looking for. To basically be able to store and actually be the perfect version of what he thinks he should be. So he gets Lena, and he sort of has her going to like sort of techno horror thing where all these wires connect up to her. So it's like, yeah, you're going to, was it? Yeah, she's got knowledge embedded in her from her time with him, and this is going to kill her. Going through all this. God, I'm trying to remember all this. Yeah, actually, that's the other thing that I had a problem with, is that basically, out of nowhere, they just give you a reason why Connor Kent has a power that was hinted at when he was fighting the Chained. That with one big ground punch, he's going to take out everything on the Brainiac ship. Yeah, so when it comes to the clone, Connor Kent, he's always had what he's called tactile telekinesis, and that's how they explain how he can fly. Right? Basically, he had this aura that his aura to make him more Kryptonian. It would allow him to move things with his mind, but he had to be touching them at the same time, right? So with the Chained, we found out that's how the Chained operates. It's just magnified to it. So Connor realized that by touching the ship, because everything's connected to the ship, by essentially overloading his tactile telekinesis, he's able to hit like this, essentially a Brainiac level EMP to knock out the whole ship, right? Yeah. But it's fine, I guess. It's very much Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, it just felt easy. It just felt out of nowhere. Like, hey, remember there was a brief hint that, I don't know, I just didn't feel like a good payoff to anything. I just thought, okay, I guess that solves half the problems immediately. All right. Yes. So there's that whole thing. But that is the thing, though. My big problem with it is that it knocks out Brainiac Queen. She collapses. That's her. She's done. So after she just killed like a city full of Zarnians, a city full of Lobos, even if you want to call it that.
He does the Superboy does the equivalent of the Superman punch, and that's it.
Yeah. Or more precisely, it's just like Superboy Prime punching reality. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels so easy. I feel like you spent the last couple of issues building up Brainiac being to be this unstoppable killing machine.
Yes.
And then Connor Kent, of all people, no offense, Matt, just immediately just takes her out like it's nothing.
And see, there's an opportunity to do this whole thing of the family stands together, and that's where you have Brainiac as the solo entity that, yes, there's other versions of himself that he's trying to spread the knowledge out through to try to stop these glitches, even though he knows that it's going to kill him. But you could have Clark and the Super Family stand against him, and that's, through whatever. Their combined power is what eventually takes out Brainiac Queen. So it just shows like this is an actual family. This is not a bunch of people that you've molded to be just like you to be a family. But that's not what Williamson does. He does big punch, make monster go down, and then he gets Brainiac's actual family involved, which we kind of get a beat of that. But I don't feel like it hits those beats as well as it could have.
Yeah, Brainiac, because the Kolu city's bottles are smashed, his family show up, including his son, and it's a whole thing. The Super family show up as well. Lex and Kara show up. Superman's pissed at Lex, but Kara's like, "Oh, listen, no, hear him out. Like he's not behind all this." Ah, dear. Yeah. So
we get the flippin' Brainiac Cerebro helmet from Luthor.
We do. Honestly, I read these like just so back to back. I'm just like, yeah. So they're fighting all the different versions of Brainiac and the family and all that. Right, so that's the cliffhanger at the end of Action Comics, right? And this is the problem, like, with these both come out in the same week, is that I read both of them, and like, if you'd asked me before we got to this, and I'm looking at the page now, what's the split? What ends this issue and starts the next one? I could never have told you. Could never have told you. There is technically a backup on this issue. I didn't read it, but
yeah. So it's essentially, I mean, it's kind of it's a side chapter of what's going to happen in Superman. Although clearly it didn't get in your way because you didn't read it.
No, I just went on to the next one.
But it's just a quick exploration of Lex and Lena's relationship. So while she's plugged into the ship, she's seeing herself as a Brainiac. So Lex in his Cerebro helmet taps through to her, and she basically starts saying like, "Well, I was never anything but a pawn to you. Like this is all you would use me for." And because as a baby, he essentially trades her to Brainiac. Brainiac comes back from the future where now she's been, made a servant of that Brainiac, I think it was 13, and is eventually returned back to, after Our World's at War, Superman eventually returns her back to Lex. But then because of all of this, she still has Brainiac pieces in her, which we've gotten, that's how she's able to do what she was doing through the run. And that he sent her to go live with the mom because she couldn't stop aging quick, right? Because of this Brainiac stuff. So in order to kind of counter that, he sends her far away. And it's an exploration of his guilt because at the end of the day, he does care for her. And that's what's going to make him do the right thing. So they end up facing off against a version in this hive mind of Brainiac, which is where they are of that Brainiac 13. And Lex is able to make it right and save Lena. So they go through, Brainiac ends up separating them, Brainiac 13, and Lex goes, "You're not going to take her again, even if it kills me." And it ends with them like wired into the wall. Although this art here by Laura Braga is not as techno horror as much as, the stuff that I think Sandoval had done, but it has them in wires. But you see Lex's hand come up and join Lena's while they're linked in to this hive mind.
I mean, this leads us neatly into the start of Superman then, because Superman, Lex is jacked into the network that Lena's been hooked into, and I get this to me is just part of like what's so uninspiring. So I mean, this is not just Williamson. A lot of comic book writers would do this. This is not just him.
Yes,
but you're doing a story here right? And again, you're having to squeeze it into like part of the final issue of the arc, so you don't have enough time to do anything really fun with it. But instead of doing something interesting with like the digital world that she's in and he's going to save her from, you just have them fighting. Like it's like they're in Green Lantern like suits, just like,
contracts.
Yeah, they're just fighting like digital enemies, like it's an action movie, and them like this is just the same type of fighting shit we're seeing in the real part of the comic book. Like, wouldn't it be more interesting if like the digital world was different and it wasn't just a fight? That's just all I could think when I saw them like firing bolts of energy at like digital robot things
at a digital brain.
Yeah,
that they come up to. Yeah,
it's just the most boring thing you could have possibly done for this digital world. It could have
literally been anything. It could have been Lex in the Apocalypse suit, right? In his Lex suit, going through, because they could, like you said, they could literally be anything. It's Inception, right? They're in the dream world.
Yeah, she could have been sitting playing chess in the park, and he has to come up and beat her in chess or something. I don't know, anything, literally anything else.
But no, he goes and pushes a button. To delete the whole Brainiac system, I guess, right? It's the hive mind. So he's essentially shutting it off and turning it back on.
Yeah, Brainiac's pissed that Lady Brainiacs went down, and he's punching Superman and yelling about it. It's a whole thing. The rest of the Super Family show up, which Superman's not thrilled with because he was hoping they would get to safety or whatever. But they're all involved. There's more Lex and Lena firing blasts at a brain inside the digital world. Eventually it does help take down Brainiac. He kind of like, holds his head and there's like lightning coming out of his face as if he's malfunctioning. And that's that, and it's going to detonate the ship, which...
I love though that him losing his intelligence, right? Because it starts at 99% intelligence.
That's right, yeah.
It's counting down like it's a bomb instead of him just like not being able to do motor functions, right?
I think the implication is that because the ship's just hardwired to him and he controls it mentally, that's why the ship's just breaking down as his intelligence is decreasing.
Yes.
So basically it's like, we have to find a place for all of these worlds that are in, or all these cities, I should say, in these bottles. What's it called? We see it created later on. It's
the new Kalu.
Yeah, it's
right?
Kalu 2.0. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's essentially Warworld. So they just made another Warworld, except this one's not based off of Mongol and his.
No. It's just like a world made of all these cities that Brainiac had on his ship. It's a big like tech looking world as well.
Yeah, it's almost like that Green Lantern Mosaic book, right? Where it's all the different aliens living on one planet, and each of them looks like a different. Honestly, a different piece.
Can I just say how much I quickly just went through this issue? Like, I was looking for things to talk about, and so much of it was fighting.
Yes.
I just like skipped past so many pages to get to the important stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is where Brainiac. We find out that Brainiac puts the Brainiac Queen in the shuttle, and we get another
just like
recreation.
Just like Jor-El putting Superman in the ship Kal, I should say, in the ship.
And it is very, here, I may be gone, but your story's just beginning. My queen, and it shoots off. So I thought that was kind of inspired because I saw it here first before Ground Zero, before they run that back. But I thought that was kind of, in the grand story of what Brainiac wanted to do. It's him continuing his legacy. Much like, Clark was, Krypton's legacy. So
a couple things from the end of this here is that obviously Superman reunites with Lois, and just as they're about to get smoochy, Kara brings Lex onto the roof, and they're like, wait, what's this? What's going on? And Superman makes a whole speech about, you know what, Lex, you're the man you said you were. I'm proud of you. You're a good man now. And then Lex turns and looks at him with these big bright eyes and says, who's Lex Luthor? So him being hooked up to the Brainiac device or network has clearly scrambled his brain.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. It does make me wonder though if like there's someone else in there or if his mind's just been wiped. I guess we'll find out. But that's our first little cliffhanger. There's a little page at the end teasing what's going to come in Superman after Absolute Power.
Yep.
And it looks like Doomsday punching the wall to get out.
The hell wall.
Yeah.
So which we had seen, which we enjoyed that issue, right? Of him trying to become the King of Hell.
Yes, but it obviously this very much mimics the opening of Death of Superman, though, with Doomsday punching his way out of wherever he was being kept.
Right.
So we're getting Doomsday after Absolute Power.
Cool.
I mean, I don't hate it. I just know that Williamson's going to fumble the ball because he always fumbles the ball.
Look! If this was another writer that was taking, if it was Dan Waters who wrote the King of Hell stuff, and we had Bloodwind down there with Supergirl, I'd be like, cool. Let's see what he's going to do on Superman.
I wonder if we get more of Bloodwind then, since we're bringing back the Hell.
I mean, he became the Superman of Hell, so
that's right.
I feel like we'll see that, but we still have so many lingering threads and stuff like Marilyn Moonlight and.
Oh, who cares anymore, Matt? Let's forget that she exists.
But it's just like, oh man, him and his ideas, he just throws them out there, and if it sticks, great. If not, whatever. So
maybe she'll be an Absolute Power. Maybe she'll help during that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. I just two Superman books on one day. I should be very excited, and then I got to the end of these. I was like, okay, so those are books that I read.
On the upside, Action Comics will have moved on to Gail Simone next month. So
yes,
that's fun. That's different, at least. Maybe it won't be amazing, but at least it'll be different. So that's good.
That's where we get that fun. It looks like it's Clark in the past type stuff. He's at the red and black shield, and he looks like he's old school, cub reporter.
Okay.
Type. So like you said, it might not be good, but it's going to be different.
Yeah. No, I dislike Gail Simone. I think she's done plenty of good stuff, but
all this just makes me miss Philip Kennedy Johnson. I was explaining to a friend at work that whole War World saga, and it just really made me miss that time when I got very excited to read Action.
Yeah, I miss War World saga. I mean, hell, even compared, like I miss Bendis even. Like, not that everything Bendis did was good, and there was definitely some weak spots, but there was definitely large stretches of Bendis's run that I really liked. Much more than what Williamson's done in the book, so take that for what you will. All right. Did we rate? I want to rate both, I guess.
So, are we gonna rate them as a whole because they're 5 and 6? Or are we gonna itemize them?
Well, rate Superman then. No, rate Action then rate Superman.
Rate Action. Okay, so I'm gonna give Action mainly because the art shift, because there's that. I'm gonna give Action a 6, and I'm going to give Superman a slightly higher 6.5. And that's mainly because the art's consistent throughout. It's just not as imaginative.
I am going to give Action a 5 because Connor Kent just taking out the villain was spent issues building up that easily just was such a goddamn anticlimactic moment.
God, and she was kind of cool looking, like the big Doomsday, like not like cool, great, but like she was a monster, and we didn't even get a cool monster fight. He punched the ground.
So I'll give that a 5, and I'll give Superman a 6.
Okay.
There we go. That's my ratings. All right, The Flash, issue 10, legacy number 810. Cy Spurrier writing with Ramon Perez and Vasco Georgiev on the art. So you're reading this, Matt, so I get to rest my voice for a bit.
You do. So the issue starts with Wally in the garden, and we've known now that the garden's a trap. It's essentially to keep him occupied by whatever else is going off in the realm. And we get our first look at what an arc angle actually looks like. And I don't know if you've seen those memes that go around of what like the angels look like if you go off of a Bible description. But they're like these big, fiery, geometric kind of shapes with wings. That is what these look like. The one that is talking to Wally in this is just this big, gigantic, there's like a pyramid in the middle. It looks like a bunch of eyes around it with a bunch of wingtips, but essentially that ghost, who I'm going to guess now is not exactly the ghost of his mom, but it's the representation. Not his mom, because that would be Barry. So never mind. I have no idea who this is at this point.
Yeah, and your Flash is mixed up.
I am getting my Flashes mixed up because we have essentially biblical angels showing up in the Flash book, which color me surprised. But essentially, that ghost is trying to make him remember that he's Wally West, and he's like, Wally West, never heard of him. And he's sitting in the shade when the Archangel shows up. And then it cuts to Barry and that big Justice Buster mech suit that showed up claims to be Batman. And he's like, it proclaims, I'm Batman, authoritarian goth buzzkill. In Barry's like, nah, Batman doesn't talk like that. Like, whoever you are, you're pretending to be Batman, and why do you have the Justice Buster suit? So it tries to hit him with like essentially what is it here? It's a frictionless condensate. So it's essentially to make him not be able to control his speed, but it's Barry Allen. So Barry's able to shake it off of him. He starts running circles around the Justice Buster, and it's revealed that it's Oliver Queen, who is working for Waller already. And so Waller has sent him to bring in the Flash because all the screwy stuff that's been going on. But he does have a fun line here where Waller's trying to tell him. So eventually, he's undermining Waller at every chance. So even though they're working together, she's like, you need to bring him in swiftly and surely. And he's like, well, let me play around first and do what I need to do. But she wants him to use this AI targeting system to get the Flash. And Ollie, this is kind of what gave me the too, that it was someone that has a point of view. He goes, AI can't create lady. All it does is regurgitate old S in pretty patterns. A situation like this, what's needed is some intuition, and that's where it cuts to him. So, Ollie giving a little bit of his take on AI and artistry. I felt like that Spurrier talking through the character, but eventually he throws a batarang at like super speed, and it knocks Barry off balance enough. In the crux of thing where adult Wade is with this, the timekeepers, he's changing his own diaper, which is grossing out Piper and Jay. And as they're doing this, he's like, this is weird. Isn't it weird that you're changing your own diaper? Like, yes, I know it's like you taking care of your own business, but it gives you a different perspective, which gets Jay remembering what his dad would always tell him. And it's this fun little angle of Jay on a roof with Haley the dog while Wally and Dick are talking. But basically, he remembers that Wally told him that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change, and that all the numbers that these science folks are processing, he's like, well, maybe all the numbers are right, but that's because reality is wrong. Like, there's something at the base level that's not right. So Jay starts playing with his like reality shaping, and he starts seeing like the Folded Man and the Mirror Master and Grodd, and all these little pieces start to pop up. So they start to see the bigger conspiracy at play, and that essentially Wade's like, well, if they want all these speedsters off the table, then whoever's in charge of this, I'm more inclined to put them back on. So the issue ends up that part of the issue ends up ending with the Flash family coming in to assist Barry to take out the Justice Buster, and Ollie gets out of there before they're able to realize that it's him, and Waller gets him back to wherever their base is, and there's a little bit of seeds towards absolute power and whatnot. But the part that I skipped over was mainly a fight scene between Barry and Ollie, which is fun because they end up Barry ends up tracking their frequency to wherever the signal's coming from for this big Justice Buster robot, and he had gotten hooked by the suit through his shoulder, and when he gets there, Barry's able to pull Ollie through, and then throw him through that, which makes for a fun little action sequence using his momentum. And then it gets back to Wally in that while he's here and he's frozen with the Archangel that is talking to him, that now that he doesn't remember who he is, he's a perfect empty vessel, because they're going to show him what he's meant for, and that's to be a divine weapon. That between the Crown of Thorns that still infected him, because it's infected him and Barry, he's going to be the syringe, and the Crown of Thorns are going to be the poison, and they're going to inject him into the Speed Force. And you turn the page, and the final reveal is there's a bunch of archangels in the four corners, a bunch of like gold energy flowing around, and Barry staring at like what looks like another Crown of Thorns. And so essentially the Archangel's plan is they're going to murder time itself using the Speed Force. So yeah, it's a lot more straightforward. I know it sounds like a bunch of babblings of a madman trying to go through it like that, but from all the pieces that we had, it's finally starting to come together as a more cohesive story. Now that we realize that the Archangels, who's ever impersonating the Archangel or whatever they are, there's a bigger game at foot, right? And that's everything that they've done is to prep Wally to be the one that essentially undoes time and everything. And it took Jay to figure that out by something that Wally had told him. So I feel like it's almost creating this loop of, this is why Wally's important in that way, is that he is this inspiration. And even though he doesn't remember who he is, the fact that his family remembers who he is, that's, I think, going to be the key to everything. The art, you can't, like, the split's not that noticeable. I do feel like all of the Wally stuff is one artist, and then I feel a lot of the action stuff, it feels more like Georgiev. But I could have them flip. Georgiev could be doing the Wally stuff, but it doesn't look like the Amazon's attack. So the art's a little bit different if it is Georgiev. The action scenes are really well done. Who's ever the artist that does that, that's doing the Flash stuff, they draw Bart like he's a little kid. Like he looks like he's about the same age as the twins. So that was a little off, but all the layouts and everything, it's handled really well. There's a good flow to the action. And yeah, so this was a book that Pete didn't read that I did and I enjoyed. I'm glad I'm keeping going with the Flash. So I'm going to give this a 7.5.
Okay. All right. Well, The Penguin, issue 11, Tom King writing with Rafael de Latorre on the art. So this one actually finally brings us up to a scene that was teased a few issues ago with Penguin's dead son.
Yep.
We kind of get to that point by the end here. So the big thing here is that at the end of that last issue, Batman had a meeting with the Penguin's daughter, and she told him what the Penguin's up to, and that he's been used by the Penguin. This issue starts off with the consequence of that, which is Batman beating the piss out of the Penguin.
He's broken his nose 37 times.
Well, not in this scene. Yeah, not in this scene, but like, yeah.
But over the course of the relationship, he's broken Penguin's nose 37 times. And I kind of just love the casual detachment that Oswald has to all of this. Because like he knows that Bruce is mad at him, but he's not letting it show. He's still just talking in his typical way. And I thought that dynamic here has been consistent throughout, and I'm glad that King hasn't shifted from it.
Yeah, Batman's whole thing is like, you know what, given who I am and what I do, I don't get to enjoy beating people up, but after what you've done, I want to, you owe me some joy. And the Penguin's like, I'm done giving out joy. So, yeah, Batman goes off, right, at the end of the thing, but he's like, hey, our deal's done, you're not my informant anymore, so if you do anything, you're going to be held just as culpable as anyone else, right? Yep. Consider yourself on the villain list. the help goes to retrieve the Penguin's like backup money, right?
His stash of gold.
Yeah, basically it's a contingency plan in case Penguin ever loses his empire. He'd have enough money to bribe his way back up to the top.
Yep.
But when the help goes to the secret vault, he finds it empty, barring one thing: a batarang.
It looks like Bruce found the gold.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is not necessarily right now in continuity, but I love the idea that that's how he got all his money back in Batman and Detective, is that he found Penguin's gold billion.
And you know what? It's dirty money, so who am I to spend it? Who am I to not spend it, I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But this issue is like Penguin's ex-wife leaves Penguin a note saying that she's off.
Because he doesn't have anything, so now she no longer finds him attractive, you know? Which I thought is like, man, he really built up Penguin to just have him fall down here, which is funny because the title of this issue is Penguins Usually Can't Fly. So I was like, oh, this is like the Penguin in Free Fall. That's what he's getting at. Yeah,
but like to a point though, some of it's kind of orchestrated because like, her leaving is whatever, and obviously a big sad full page spread where he's sitting with his head, in his face, or sorry, his head in his palm, I should say.
Yep.
As the bat signals out the window behind him. But you see the Penguin's kids, like they interview Black Tiger? A Spider.
Black Spider.
Not Tiger. Yeah. And they're like, hey, you were at a lot of these key scenes where Penguin like kind of screwed up with our supply chains and like all of our business. So, and she talks about in her narration, the daughter talks about how, she's used to the look in the face when they've realized that Penguin screwed them over. Like he's put them in a predicament, and he has that look on his face right now where he's realizing that doing this job for Penguin has led him to the end of his line. So basically they demand to know like everything, basically. But Penguin seemingly sends home the 4th of July. The guy from the 4th of July thinks that he's going to be killed, but he just gets a ticket home. The help seems to have been sent home as well, or at the very least it looks like he's abandoned Penguin because he's not been paid. And it's just this kind of thing where it's like, all this is happening, and Penguin goes to the FBI lady and basically says, like, you know what, I wasn't hurting anyone, you dragged me into this, and we're done, right? And everyone who I have killed or has been killed as a result of me trying to take back the city for you is on you. So what I loved about this is that this character, this FBI agent, is that later on her narration comes in again, but without seeing her, and I knew it was her purely because she kept swearing, because that's her gimmick, is she keeps dropping F-bombs and whatever else she's saying.
And there's a rhythm to it too. King's writing it, and this is where I would push back on Connor that everybody's voice sounds the same. And I was like, clearly no, because it's her even without the cussing. If it was just her, there's a flow to the way that she talks.
Carl's an idiot. There's no disputing this.
No, I know, but that's my one nit. It's not even anybody. The one thing where he says that King writes everybody the same. It's like, no, you haven't read a proper King book in a very long time, bud. Like, so this one right here shows it, because when she shows back up and you can't see her face, even without the censored words, you would still be able to figure out that's her. So.
Yeah. She's pissed. She feels that she's been threatened by Penguin by him saying, hey, all these bodies that have dropped will be on you. Blah, 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 blah. And she sort of like tries to goad him by saying, I thought you were like effing Penguin. Who the hell are you now? Kind of thing. But like, it feels like Penguin is giving up and that he's content. Like he's just thrown in the towel, and that his partnership with Batman's falling apart. He's sending people home. His ex-wife's gone home. It feels like it's over. And this is when we cut to the Iceberg Lounge, and it's just his daughter on her own, sipping a martini or whatever it is, saying that this is it. And Penguin, it just pulls out a book called Birds of America. He sits down, and what we see outside is like the bad guys that have come to kill Penguin, led by Penguin's son, are coming up the stairs in his apartment building. But it turns out that some of the 4th of July are here, that the help is here, and they start firing on these guys. And not only that, FBI agents show up working, for FBI lady, and they're here as well, because the bad guys. I think it's like the narration from one of the main ones is that he was usually a henchman for Two-Face, because Two-Face is pretty straight with them and he knows where he stands with Two-Face. But when he found out that he had a chance to kill Penguin after, and this is the thing that really got him, is that everyone now knows that Penguin was feeding information to Batman. So a lot of the criminal underworld are pissed at him now. So that's interesting. But he's like, wait, why are the FBI here? Why are they involved in this? What's going on? So we get all this. We also get the sad, tragic death of the 4th of July member, the one who was like the one that could duplicate himself.
Silent majority.
Yeah, but there's only like one version of him left, and he's very confused. Well, he seems to die here. He gets shot to shit.
And he says, as his narration goes through, he's describing how everyone else is going down, and he's like, "We were a crowd, we were a legion, we were an army," and he's talking about himself.
Yeah.
Right, and he liked it better that way. And then at the end, when it shows that he dies, he says, "Back then, I never had to die by myself." I was like, oh my God, damn it, King. Make me care for this character that I didn't know existed, 8 issues ago, Yeah,
it's really effective. And the art here is really good as well, because you get those panels, like the in-between panels where it's all black with just the people wearing like red and like just a little bit like a line as if the blood of the gunshot is like going through them. It's the sort of the high contrast style as the gunshots are going off. Really, really good. But then you get like because that's like the first wave that go in, and then Penguin's sons with the second wave, and they're all wearing suits and ties, and they got the glow behind them of the fire as they're walking. It feels really imposing. And the son's angry. He's firing his gun, and it cuts to Penguin sitting in his chair, and he literally yawns looking at his book, even though there's a gunfight going on in the stairwell.
It feels kind of like in Godfather when they do, what was it, the christening scene, and they're calling in all the guys to make these murders while they know that Michael's at his baby's, whatever it was. It felt kind of like that, but instead of being at a church, he's reading his bird book. As all this is, so this is this is the outcome of all of his machinations.
Yeah, it's different because he's at the scene in this case. But obviously, the panels in between him yawning as he's sitting, he's reading his book, are all like in silhouette with the guys firing the guns with just fire behind them, whereas Penguin's sitting in muted like blues and greens, and he just kind of yawns. It really does a good job of doing that sort of, like, because in a movie it's that harsh cut of all the sound of the gunfire and fighting to the quiet of just like sitting there. Here, of course, the sound would still be there. It would just be more muffled because it's a couple of rooms over or whatever. But really good. And you get a full page spread here of Batman, right, with the bat signals in the sky behind him. He's grappling through the air, and it's just the FBI agent lady. This is the page where her narration comes back in. And she's just livid about the situation, that Penguin's put them in this situation, and that all hell's breaking loose. And she's like, one of the agents asked her, should we call the effing Batman? Really? No, you effing idiot, ignorant piece of shit. Like, no, we don't need the effing Batman. I need the effing Penguin. Like, that really made me laugh. And then when you find out that Batman's not even on his way to here, because this is how we find out the help's still around, because he's not at the gunfight. I said the help is still in the city, but he's on the rooftop. He's turned on the bat signal. So Batman has basically been kept distracted from this gunfight happening just to make sure that he's not there while this is going on. The help is still working for the Penguin. And that's actually the final panel, is him standing there. Because as this is happening, it intercuts with what's going on back at the apartment. It's basically Penguin's son stumbling in after being shot a bunch of times, and Penguin finishing the job by stabbing him with his umbrella. So we get this ultra blood red panel of, again, high contrast, but now the red, instead of the clothes being red and the background being black, now the background is completely red, and like it's just like black and white, kind of like high contrast highlights for the two characters. But it's basically just this idea that they're keeping Batman distracted. Like, so it really sells this idea that this was all a plan by Penguin. He lured his son in. He lured the army to come in to make his big play. When it looked like he was giving up, he was actually plotting and scheming his biggest play yet.
And so he had also told the FBI that if anything happens to him, if he dies, everything that he's worked with her for is going to go out to the public. So that's why she's there to counter, because Penguin's got to stay alive, or else he's going to, blow up her spot.
He basically obviously has some of the Force of July there to help defend him, but he's basically forced the FBI into having a squad there as well So yeah, it ends up being this bloodbath, and we got this scene a few issues ago where they teased all these dead bodies up the stairwell with Penguin's son at the top.
And he sent Sparkler home because he actually gave him a ticket. That's what he gave him in the car for him to leave. And I remember in that issue, they had 4 of the 5 members of the Force of July, and we were wondering who was the one that made it out.
And he's the one that had the family, right?
He's the one that had the family, but also Penguin doesn't do things out of the goodness of his heart, right? So what's the catch there? Is the Sparkler going to be his? He's probably got card.
Yeah, something planned for him later is the only thing I can think. Yeah.
So, but yeah, just when you realize that Batman's not on his way to the to Penguin's location, he's going to the Bat Signal where the help is.
Because you think he is. You get that full page and you think, oh, Batman's on his way, but no, he's not. Yeah. He's being distracted on the other side of town.
Yeah. So we get there and it's just like, oh man, it's almost like not a gut punch in that way because you're not rooting for anybody, but it was almost like that. Oh, I got played. It's the look of the face that his daughter had seen, right, when the Penguin has played you.
Yeah, and that's the same look in her face that she's going to have when she realizes what's happened to her brother. I think it's so good because it does play the audience the same way Penguin's playing all the other characters.
Yeah.
But it doesn't betray the format of the book, because this entire book has been Penguin has got a plan, and a lot of the issues have been, okay, he's recruiting these people and this is what his end goal by the end of the issue is, and so many of the issues are played out by that we can't even feel mad. This is played out exactly like so many of the other issues. It's just that he's actively trying to mislead other characters in the book, so we feel misled as well, but in a fun way where we feel like we're in on it by the end.
Right, and do we think that he sent his ex-wife away to keep her safe? Right, while all this was going off, so she wasn't a target?
I'm conflicted because it's either that or she did leave genuinely the way she said she did, and that was the motivation for him to realize what he had to do.
We need a change. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure which one I lean towards more, but that feels like a possibility to me. It feels like Batman taking all of his money and her leaving is okay, that means I have to tackle this differently.
I have to head on, right, versus in the shadows, because the look on his face too when when he reads the letter, though, it almost could be a look of relief as well, oh good, she left. I don't have to do anything else. But yeah, I am looking forward to the confrontation between him and his daughter now, because she has proven to be Penguin's daughter through and through with the way that she went to Batman to Rat, just like he would have. So I wonder if it's almost going to be like this. Well, I raised my kid to be like me. Is that a success or a failure? Right.
Yeah. Also, going back to what you said earlier about how Penguin pointing out, him pointing out to her that all the dead bodies are on her because she put him back into the world and said, you have to do this. I think it's really interesting that was brought up, and then by the end of the issue, there's an entire massacre worth of dead bodies that now are also still going to be in her head. It's almost like he's saying, hey, also all the other ones that are about to come up, they're all on you too. Every single dead body in my wake is going to be on you.
Everything that I have to do goes back to you. This is on you. You wear it on your conscience.
Yeah.
Because he, even in the conversation with Sparkler when he takes him out of the car, and he says, I'm not a good man. And the way that he gets at that is about, what's he say? He looks at him and says, I'm not a good man. I never saw the use for it being, it's like, you understand what all this means. He didn't ever do things because it was good. He only did stuff because they're necessary. Right. And so this is a necessary thing to keep, to get his, I don't know if it's wife or his girlfriend, whoever he's been living with, where they plucked him out of the thing. Everything he does is necessary to get her away from the FBI, and it's not for a force of good. So yeah, oh man, this book is so good. I look forward. If you would have told me I would looking forward to a Penguin book in the year 2024, and it's almost, I won't say it's like the best crime book it's the best one I'm reading right now, right? Like it has more in common with like a Brubaker Phillips criminal kind of book
for
at
sure,
times
I can see
than
that.
it does a typical Batman book. So it's very much in that, almost like Gotham Central in that way, because that was Brubaker and Rucka. But yeah, so yeah, very good stuff.
Yeah, art's very good throughout as well. I really like on that last page how you get the bat signal in the top panel, and then the panel underneath it, goes back to Penguin standing in front of his son. The light shining into that room from the fire and whatever else is in the exact same part of the frame that the bat signal's in the other two panels above and below it. So there's like a through line for your eye to follow where the light, it's not the light of the bat signal hitting them, but it almost feels like it because the way it sort of goes between the panels. And it just makes it all flow very nice. So really like that. It's gorgeous throughout though. The full page spread of Batman swinging through the city's great. The son and his men like coming through the fire to get to Penguin.
Yeah.
Also great. It all builds up really well. Excellent. It's obviously funny in places at the start as well, with Batman breaking his nose again, saying, "Hey, let's see if we can make it to 38," or whatever the line was at the end.
If you go crooked, we'll make it 38.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm loving Penguin. It's a great book. So, what were you rating Penguin, Matt?
I'm gonna give this one a 9.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Yeah, 9 out of 10. Penguin's fantastic. All right. Green Arrow, issue 13, legacy number 346. Joshua Williamson writing with Amancay and Nahuelpan on the art. On you go, Matt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, the Arrow family is now living on the island that gave us Oliver Queen, that he had to survive on. And he's walking around and seeing everybody together. And he grabs his bow and his quiver. He gives Dinah a kiss and takes off. And the whole family's looking around. They're all chopping it up. Connor, Hawk, and Roy are making breakfast for everybody. And Red Canary, who's the newest member of the family, is just like, oh, wow, this is what you guys do in your off time. And Dinah's trying to get everyone's attention because she can't find Ollie, to where she has to yell, but it's not the canary cry, but it's done in that kind of style, right, where she has to get loud. Everyone turns, and it cuts to 48 hours later where Ollie's in the Hall of Justice, which has now been claimed by Waller as the Bureau of Sovereignty, and she gives him a mission that she wants him to work with, like not the Suicide Squad, but like an offshoot of it, to make sure that who does he go to get that to protect? They're calling it Belle Reve North, which looks like this prison in the mountain, but it's Shoes and Roy are breaking into this prison to free Cheshire. I know you and Connor made fun of me for saying it like that. And this is the first time that she sees, Shoes. And she's dressed up in her because she was Cheshire Cat, right? In the Pages of Catwoman. She's in a newer mask, but so it's all done in Roy's colors in the red. But it's still that same style of mask, just without the bottom piece of it. So it is missing the smile. But they go to free her so Leah can see her. The task force comes in, they start fighting, and as they go to make the escape, Ollie fires an arrow that ends up wrapping a rope around Roy and threatens to kick him off the building. He tells Roy, because Roy's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm not Green Arrow. I'm not a rich playboy. I'm a concerned citizen." And what Waller's doing, while I don't agree with the process, she has a point, and that he believes in Waller. And Roy's like, "Well, let's go talk to Batman and Superman. Let's talk to Dinah." And Ollie doesn't like that, so he kicks Roy off of this big ledge. And Peacemaker comments like, "Well, that was cold-blooded. Maybe you were meant for this team." But we see that Leon and Cheshire catch him, and they come back to the Arrow family and are like, "Hey, something's going on with Ollie. like, should we be worried about like Waller and the brain bombs? Because they all have those. And who says it? One of them says that Diggle let them know that they were deactivated, so they shouldn't have to worry about that going forward. But they start seeing the events of absolute power start kicking off, and they hear a voice from the back that said, well, if Oliver said he wasn't Green Arrow anymore, and then Connor steps up in his full Green Arrow uniform with the hood and everything, and goes, well, I'll be Green Arrow now. And that's how it ends. I think this is my jumping off point. Because, it's going to start really tying into absolute power and whatnot. And as much as I adore Connor Hawke as a character and the whole Arrow family, this book has kind of just existed to tie into bigger stories at this point. It doesn't really get to do its own thing. And it's not even Williamson being Williamson. It feels like it's treading water. Like we had all known that it was originally a 6-issue mini, right? And then it clearly gotten more than that. Or at least it was, maybe a 10-issue. I don't know.
No, it was 6. It was originally 6 or 7, okay. But it was around there. It wasn't.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just kind of at the level now where we're just reiterating the same stuff now, and now we've had Ollie show up in Flash working for Waller. He's actively working here because he's working against his own family, and we all know he's playing an angle at everything. But yeah, I think this was busy week like this, I probably wouldn't have read it. So but I had to know where this was going based off of the last issue. And yeah, so now I can safely know that unless the next time this comes around, I have an open spot, I think I'm off of it. So that said, it's not terrible. So I'll give this a 7.
Okay. Well, that'll take us on to Power Girl, issue 10, Leah Williams, Eduardo Pansica on the art. This is also just Matt, so.
Yeah. This clears up all of the Zardian and Metropolis stuff. So so Paige and Crush take Lobo's dog, which we find out, I'll get this out of the way now, that he used to run around with Lobo, and when he couldn't find him, when Lobo took off and disappeared and did whatever he did, he attached himself to Crush because she smells like Lobo, and that she was actually looking out for him more than Lobo did. So they ended up bonding. And so the three of them they go to Steelworks. They end up rooting through a lot of the technology where Paige can essentially make an EMP to knock out the nano guns that the Zardian bikers were using to imprison the Holiday Girls. But Crush uses this time to say, like, hey, we're kind of similar because, every time I find somewhere that I fit, I get torn away. Like, I'm cursed, and it's, from what I understand about you, it's similar. And Paige tells her, well, you're not cursed, you're traumatized. Like, you find people, and then those people let you down, so then you put your guard up, and it's not going to happen again, and it always does. But, now with these Holiday Girls is you found a family. They're not just your friends. And so she finished assembling the CMP device, and they take it back to the bar and essentially push their way in. They end up disabling all of the nano guns and all the devices that were transformed by it. And Paige ends up looking down the final one and takes her down, wraps them all up in like a cage, and leaves them in that bar until they can deal with them. And Crush realizes too, based off of what Paige had said, that these are her family, and that she's going to stick with the Holiday Girls now. She's not going to give them an opportunity to, let her be solo. So she wants to make sure that they're safe. So she has Paige reality punch and take them out while she's taking down the Zarnians. And there's this really weird section where Crush Crush is talking to Paige as they're fighting the Zarnians, and Paige tells her, it's important, for, as she goes, I think I should take that point now. The things are important for self-confidence. And Crush tells her, my self-confidence is fine. I fought you, I had you on your back within 2 seconds of us meeting. And instead of us getting like this shocked look from Paige, like, wait, what? Like she was kind of making like a lewd joke at her. We get this, like, it's a really weird art choice where it's just very small, and Crush is like, oh no, not like that. You're not my type. You're too skinny. And it's just a really weird, like, it doesn't seem like the art matches the dialogue. Because then it goes straight from this little part where she says, you're not my type, to her, finishing off one of the Zarnian guys. And I just, I would have wanted a bigger reaction from Paige off of something like that. Like, play it for comedy. And they just it makes for a very awkward, almost shocking for shocking's sake. And yeah, and again, the art just doesn't seem to match. And the art, while it's fine, it's not where Pansica's art has been. It feels very rushed. Like there's not a lot of details on the faces. Paige looks fine, but she looks more like Supergirl in some of them. So yeah, it's just not as crisp as it has been. While all this is going on, the symbiote creature is walking around Metropolis with this lion body. And because of the presence of the Zarnians and the nano stuff, his power of being able to adapt technology and reform it to him starts to go haywire. So at the end, he ends up taking some like extra electricity from a car to burn out like whatever these nanobots that are affecting him are, which now he can't change his appearance at will for long periods. But he ends up wandering over to the bar where all the Zarnians are, while Paige and Crush are dealing with the Holiday Girls, and ends up killing them all. He shapeshifts into this bald man. Kind of looks like Bruce Willis, which I don't know if that was a stylistic choice or a coincidence. And basically says, I'm death, I'm symbiote. And then when Paige goes to get them back, they're not there, and they think that, someone must have come and dealt with them. And we see them at the bottom of the ocean that symbiote came from, right, where all this started, just a bunch of dead Zarnians, which again, for a species that's apparently notoriously hard to kill because of the regeneration, we're just offing them like they're red shirts. It takes like next to nothing. And we get Omen meeting Crush and the Holiday Girls, and it makes for a lot of fun stuff because she's Omen and constantly picking into people's minds by accident. This is where we find out about Lobo's dog, whose name is just Dog. They end up leaving Paige with a biker jacket that says "Friend of the Holiday Girls," with Crush going off on to like do a cross country road trip with them. But yeah, this book has stumbled a whole lot. Like I made the point to read it because I said I would read it, and now I think I'm kind of nearing the end of that. I'll give it probably one more, and then if it doesn't write itself, it doesn't get back to the stuff that I was enjoying in the early parts of it. Like I miss when it was Omen and Paige going through and talking through issues and like really getting into the character beats of certain characters. Now it's just become kind of like another disposable superhero book. Like I know they had to tie into the House of Brainiac, but outside of the Zarnians and some other stuff, there's really not a lot to do with any of that. Like them showing up at Steelworks and whatever, it just feels coincidental at a point. But yeah, kind of bummed out that this is where this book has gone. And I couldn't even hang it up on the art to, as something fun to read. So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10.
The Matt-only books are dwindling.
Yeah.
Dwindling indeed. Convenient, given that the release day is changing soon. It's almost like you were looking for things to cut.
Yeah, I mean, Green Arrow, it's been on the border for a minute. And now it's just like, okay, this is just gonna exist to tie into other things. I don't need it that much. But Power Girl, I'm kind of bummed about because this is what I was really excited for. So
of course, until we start reading Absolute Power, and you're like, damn, I need to know what's happening in the tie-ins.
Maybe I'll let you know though.
All right, final book of the week is Zatanna, Bring Down the House, issue 1. Mariko Tamaki writing with Javier Rodríguez on the art. So we are fans of Tamaki on this show, and we're looking forward to this one. It's the newest Black Label book, which, yeah, this is the newest Black Label book they've announced, because everything else they've announced is Elseworlds. So I don't know if the line's continuing, if we're going to have both going forward, but I don't know. It's kind of weird because it comes and goes in these weird little spurts where you'll get 3 or 4 books announced, and then it'll feel like half a year goes by without any new announcements. To the point where I infamously said this line is dead, and then within 2 weeks of saying that, they announced like 6 new books. So anyway, so this is Zatanna. There's a flashback at the start, which also turns out to be like a recurring dream/nightmare she's having. But she is working in Vegas as a matinee style magician, although doesn't use that word. She doesn't do magic. She does tricks. She does tricks, which is something a whore does for money and candy.
I've never heard that before. This is the first.
Well, have you not seen Arrested Development?
Yeah, but I don't remember who's. Right. Are they talking about Kitty?
No, it's Job. So Job. So Michael says to Job, blah blah blah, and he has a constant thing where he keeps saying they're not tricks, they're illusions, and he says, why don't you do some of your tricks? And he goes, they're illusions. Tricks are something a whore does for money. But the joke of the scene is that there's a bunch of kids all standing in the background, and he looks down at them a locker and goes, or candy.
I think I need to go back through the first 3 seasons again.
Yeah, you'd have to watch anything past that. But yeah, the first 3 seasons, you can watch Arrested Development. Yeah. Anywho, so, okay, well, I hope someone else got my Arrested Development reference.
Normally I would have. I don't remember that exactly, But yes, it made me laugh, so at least there was that.
Yeah. The flashback here is her as a kid doing the whole cups trick with the balls. But she loses the balls, and the kids start making fun of her, and she gets all upset, and she looks like a kid, but she still kind of got like a kid's version of her hat on, kind of thing, magician's hat. But she goes home and tries to ask her father to say, "Hey, you promised you'd teach me how to do magic." And he's sitting all ominously at his desk.
Zatanna looks scary as hell sitting behind that desk.
Yeah, I was actually quite glad to find out this was all sort of a recurring dream, because it felt very stylized in a good way. Like, it looks good, but it definitely had a kind of a vibe to it.
I'm wondering if, though, too, we're going to see something like this did happen, and this is just her recollections of them, as an adult.
Oh yeah, no, I think it probably is like a twisted version of a memory, for sure. But obviously the end of it, where she gets so mad as they're making fun of her again. I mean, it cuts away before we see what happened, but later on we see that in the end of the dream, she actually made them all disappear with magic. Like, she killed all these kids, basically. I assume that didn't actually happen, but maybe there's something, or maybe it did happen. Maybe that's why she's so against doing actual magic in this story.
Yeah, because there's a debris field from whatever she did. Like, there's pieces of bikes and shoes and everything else.
Yeah, so maybe she's so determined to not do magic because she did think she hurt people when she was young or something. I don't know. Or maybe we'll find out Zatanna just planted that memory in her to keep her from doing magic or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, and if you look at what he's looking at, the book that he's looking at looks very, like, dark, magic-y, almost satanic, too, which doesn't usually gel with the Zatanna that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this is something that's also, because we talk about a stalker and a dark presence throughout the book. I'm wondering if this is something that's poisoning her memories as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the art here in this dream/flashback is, there's lots of empty white space, and the colors are kind of like purple and pink, sort of
very psychedelic.
It. Yeah. But there's a lot of negative space, and it kind of uses that. Like, the house is mostly the white negative space, but there's like obviously color for the roof and the various like highlights around it. A lot of the art there's kind of like that. And then when she wakes up, though, in present day, it's a bit more normal, where you've got I mean, it's definitely sort of a muted color palette, which I really like actually, but it's definitely going for more of a, oh no, we're in a sunny climate now, the sun coming through the window. It's very much more
I feel
natural.
like I've been to those apartments that she's living at. Like, that is very much a style in Vegas.
Yeah, you do live in Vegas, so you know you probably getting some triggered actions here from some of the things she encounters here.
And I will say that they've made to show Vegas the Stratosphere Tower. That's become an icon throughout. So I appreciate that, you know, that they are trying. You know, it's more than just the casinos on the skyline. So
yeah, so she basically is you know, she's getting up, she's messing around with things. She's complaining that her bunnies are all acting up. They must have been up late watching TV. So she goes for a run, and she starts jogging through kind of a desert road. But the fun thing here is that as she's running through the desert, she notices that her shadow seems to be chased by another shadow with claws. But then when she sort of turns and looks around, it's gone. And she's like, well, that was weird. But in the very last panel, you can just see at the bottom of the page there, it's almost like the shadow that was chasing her shadow is coming up out of the ground. So it's definitely got like a sort of dark magic, supernatural kind of vibe, like she's been haunted or something like that.
Yep.
So good fun. But yeah, we get that she's working a shitty job at a casino. She's doing like a magic act, doing tricks. But it's, you know, she's intentionally turning down jobs at bigger casinos. She's telling this woman to get lost. I mean, in a nice enough way, but she doesn't want the job. She wants this crappy thing. But what I like here, the art's really good here, because she does this like walk past all the people playing slot machines at the casino, and the art does a really great job of pointing out that one of the characters is watching her, because you see her turn her head. And sure enough, later on, when she's doing her magic act, she points out that this woman's in the crowd and she's been coming and seeing a lot of her shows. And I'm like, yeah, I noticed her. I noticed her, like, tailing her out in the casino. So I thought that was a really good little subtle touch in the art. It didn't feel too... I mean, she does say, geez, like, she's noticed something as well. But even before that panel, I already kind of noticed, oh, that was a really good example of that, I thought.
Yep. Well, I like that, too, because everyone is so focused, even on the... So they'll do the people sitting at the machines. We're looking at them from behind, but right above them we see their faces, and so it also has them at the direction that they're looking. You know, so there's two different people that look at Zatanna at any given point. And yeah, it was a very good piece of visual storytelling here.
Yeah, maybe the guy will turn it to be someone as well. Although I could also just buy that he's turning his head because he thinks she's hot.
Yeah, because it's Zatanna.
But yeah, so this woman with short hair is kind of like watching her, and it's like, okay, so that's like a nice little tease for later. But yeah, so we find out, you know, this is the crappy gig. Like, everyone who comes to see her show basically gets a free ticket for parking at the local car park.
You know, and a water park.
The water park as well, yeah. So it's like a complimentary thing. So they do a whole big thing here where she's peeking out the curtain and she's getting ready to go out. She sees this woman in the trench coat, and it's all thing. And it also shows us that whenever this woman comes, she's in a different outfit. So there's this page where she's looking out, and you see all the different outfits this woman's worn. So in one, she's got like star sunglasses. One, she's got like a shirt and tie on. One, she's got like the Audrey Hepburn hat on. One, she's got like a punk haircut and like a spike collar. Yeah. So this woman's a master of disguise, although she's not disguising that well. But you know, like
no. So and she showed up 7 times. 7 in magic is a big thing too as well.
Except no, but she's wrong though. She corrects her later and says she's actually been 12 times, and she's only noticed her the 7 times.
Right.
So that's important. But you get this big 2-page layout where you get the now presenting the show you've been waiting for, the Great Zatanna, and it's this bright, colorful 2-page spread of her jumping out into the lights. And then the very next page is a panel of her looking out of an audience where it's like maybe a dozen or so people like spread out throughout the crowd. And she does her magic show, and like, you know, it's all a little bit sad. She's just doing these simple tricks.
This is the complete opposite of the Zatanna we're used to, right?
Yes.
Like every time we see her show up in Superman or Batman or whatever else, it's always she's playing for legions of adoring fans. She is like the greatest magician, you know, that works in the DC universe. Plus, she's also a very accomplished magic user as well.
Yeah, and yeah, this older woman comes up with her granddaughter afterwards to get an autograph, and she's happy to do it. But like the daughter's like wanting to know, like, why aren't you a magician? Why don't you say the magic word? And they're basically saying, why didn't you say abracadabra, right?
Right.
And then that's when it flashes back to the end of the dream, where you see that, you know, the one time she said the magic word, whether it was abracadabra or not, is
whatever it was, yeah.
Yeah. But these kids run in fear, and there's a flash of bright light, and it's like the kids are just gone. So it's really ominous, like, you know, something really bad happened. But it really sets up this idea that, you know, if this did really happen, she's this kind of like, you know, like magician who doesn't want to do the magic because it's like not even a history of violence. It's more like, no. She once did something that killed people, so she can never do it again, even though she's going to have to, obviously, in the course of the story, because bad stuff's going to happen. So at our next show, she sees this woman back in the crowd again, and she intentionally goes over to do audience participation and goes to her and starts asking her questions. And it's like, oh, you've been a bunch of times. And she's like, yeah, I've been 12 times. And she starts saying that she doesn't like tricks. She likes magic, which is obviously the opposite of what Zatanna's been saying. Is that she doesn't do magic, she does tricks. So this woman's clearly here to try and like bring Zatanna out of her comfort. And right as she's saying this big monstrous entity made up of curtains or some shit comes out of the stage, looking all evil. And
it's almost like it's made up of all of her props that are behind her on the stage.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah. You know? Yeah, it's a variety of colors and stuff.
Yeah.
So the audience start freaking out. Fire starts spreading throughout. And this woman takes off her glasses and she reveals, because she's had sunglasses on every time I've seen her. And she takes off the sunglasses and it reveals that she's got just full white eyes. And Zatanna's like, what the hell? And it's like, hey, you're Zatara's daughter. Right? You need to like use some of your, and this is where we see more of the end of the flashback / dream again, is we see like just the smoke that's left where the kids were, and there's like this like spiral of like you know, burned grass or whatever it is on the ground, just sort of really setting up that something happened. But then this is where this woman, whoever she is, says, yeah, I know your father's dead, you killed him, and that's the cliffhanger at the end. So yeah, we're dealing with a Zatanna with a different backstory here. It's very much not in continuity. As far as we know.
Yeah. So. And well, I was thinking reading this, I was like, is this just a different version of Zatanna? That's why she's coming and checking and because like she says that she likes magic, not tricks. Right? But then when she took off the glasses and her eyes were different and all that other stuff. Because I thought maybe it was playing with the duality of things, you know, and whatnot.
I think at the very least, it's given us a Zatanna who's repressing her magic abilities because bad things happened in the past.
Yep.
And she seems to have a lot of trauma from whatever happened in the past, you know, whether it's these kids or just their father or both.
Right.
But yeah, clearly something's coming for her, maybe because of her past, and whoever this woman is that's coming to help her. Like, this is probably a character we're going to know when we find out who it is, I would expect, but I think this issue does a good job, one, because it has great art, which is obviously a big plus, but I think it does a good job of setting up who this Zatanna is and where she is right now. I think it does a good job of teasing something monstrous coming for her. I think that scene where she's jogging in the shadows, chasing her shadow, is effectively simple and creepy, which is cool. So it's kind of I wouldn't say it's a horror story, but there's definitely horror elements in here, which is cool.
And in the way too that whatever it's like the unseen horror on top of it too, because for all we know, that's also her. I mean, it looks like there's claws and stuff, but maybe it's something that's protecting her as well. You know, keeping her along the right path where she doesn't need to use the magic, right? Because it's going to unlock something, and maybe this lady wants her to unlock whatever, you know, something like that. There's a lot of things that are at play still. I just love in the art. Not only like the flat colors and all that type of stuff, just the layouts, just the way like that double page that you talked about, like the Great Zatanna, just the way that everything's laid out on there, almost like a poster or like a wraparound cover. Like there's a lot of fun to be had there, and even with, you know, we talked about the scene at the slot machines and stuff, but there's just a flow to the way that the art works. So Just a real fun book. Like I already figured, because we do like Tamaki. I already kind of figured I was going to enjoy this. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it this much.
I mean, I'm not surprised, really. I think the quality is about where I'd expect. I just didn't know what it was going to be. And I think what Tamaki is good at doing is just, like, I think that's, along with being super, which is what it reminds me of in some ways, is that it feels like a really good standalone story that could be a new book. This could be a new character. It could be an indie book from Image or something like that. But it just happens to be a DC Comics character. But the way it sort of takes time to set up where she is right now, what she's going through, and that she's repressing something, it sets up enough stuff where you're like, okay, like the fact that this is Zatanna almost doesn't really matter, at least not yet. I'm sure it'll feel like it touches on some cool Zatanna stuff as we go. But for now, it's just like, no, you've introduced me to a unique version of this character that we're just going to discover, and like we're going to get a lot of her, who she is, throughout this story. And on top of that, you've got the art, you've got the bright, vivid colors that are kind of popping off every single page. The flashback's very different, of course, with the more sort of muted purples and magentas and things like that. But yeah, I mean, no, I really enjoyed it. I think it reads really well. I think the craft of the comic is really solid. You know, it's all very much straight, simple box panels for the most part, other than this page that's meant to be a poster, and other than the flashbacks where everything's kind of bleeding into negative space. So the flashbacks feel very different to the present day stuff. And the one time that the more simple structure of all just the boxes break down is when that big monster steps out towards the end, where all of a sudden you've got all these angles in the panels, you've got weird shapes because her world is completely changing. And the next few pages are kind of like that, where there's like, you know, wavy lines between the panels as opposed to actual regular things. So, no, really good. Also, subtle thing at the end, her eye color changes right at the end of the book from blue to yellow. Interesting. I don't know if that's maybe the reflection of the fire that's been spewed out from the monster, but
I mean, maybe, but it feels a lot more like, it doesn't feel just like fire. It feels like something else has been activated.
Sure.
You know? So I was trying to see what else this artist has worked on, Javier Rodríguez. And like a lot of stuff over at Marvel, but also he was a colorist before, and he did Batgirl Year One, did the colors. So if he's doing all the arts.
That does not surprise me, actually, because this coloring is very similar to that now that I'm thinking about it.
So I'm looking at a lot of this. Like he worked at DC in the early 2000s doing a lot of coloring and all of that. So so I was trying to see where else I could enjoy some of this art, but this looks like it's his first major like artwork for DC, which is great. It's a great, you know, welcome.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, what are you bringing down the house with the score wise?
I am giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, it's boring, but I'll just agree with you because it sounds right. It sounds right. All right, well, that'll bring us on to the final part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week. Favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. Matt, what is your moment / panel of the week?
Oh man, there's a good one in Flash with Wally forgetting who he was. I thought that was a whole, you know, that was a really big thing. Also with Jay remembering what his dad had told him. But it's, I think I got to take it from the Penguin, and it's that, you know, the sequence that leads to Penguin sitting there while all the gunshots are going off, and he's sitting quietly reading his bird book. I thought that was great.
Yeah. I am going to go... It's kind of a big chunk to say it's my favorite moment, but it really is the back-to-back scenes at the start of Detective. So it's a bit of a cop-out to say that, but like it feels like it's the moment I want to point out more than anything else this week. Cover of the week. I was looking whilst you were talking. For me, it comes down to a couple of things, really. I'll give runner-up to the main cover as Zatanna. There's some sexier ones. There's like a Yanin one, which is pretty good, but I'll go with the main cover as my runner-up. But my pick is actually just the main cover of Detective, which is, you know, shadowy Batman, and then all the bats are actually like grinning smiles in front of it. Quite effective. So that's my pick.
Yeah. So I was looking at some of these as we were going. Action Comics has a Jimenez variant that's got looks like Superman, looks like he's got a super uppercutting Brainiac. It looks cool, but it wouldn't be, I just wanted to mention it. There's also another Superman cover that is by Miguel Mercado that's got Superman up in the clouds.
Do you know,
looks like
Matt,
it's painted.
I considered that one. I just don't like his face that much. I think,
and that's.
I think the suit looks great. The suit looks 10 out of 10, but the face I'm just not feeling.
It's just off, yeah. So that's why you had already mentioned what my cover was, and it's the Zatanna Janet variant. So I like what it's doing with the perspective. It's got the cards, it's got the dice, everything's at a wonky angle. And yeah, so that's mine.
All right, cool. Art of the week.
Well, it's down to Penguin and Zatanna. I also had Tech in there. That was really solid. But I think it just comes down to this time what, stuck with me a little bit more. And it's going to be Penguin. So that's fine.
Yeah, it's tough. Because I think they're both very good. I think I complimented more specific things with Penguin, so I am going to lean just towards that. But Zatanna from Rodríguez was very, very close. So, yeah, that's that. All right, top 5 books, Matt, go.
All right, 1 will be Tech, 2 will be Penguin, 3 will be Zatanna, 4, this is where I forget what I rated things now, so there's too many books. I guess 4 is Flash and 5 is Superman.
Okay, my number 1... Oh, it's tough between... I'm going to say number 1, Tech, number 2, Penguin, number 3, Zatanna, so our top 3 are the same. 4, I'll go Absolute Power Ground Zero, and 5, I'll go... I guess Superman annoyed me less than Action, so Superman can be number 5. So there you go. So I'll tell you now what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have Batman 150, so kind of a milestone issue, and it's tying in, of course, to Absolute Power. We have Poison Ivy 24, Birds of Prey issue 11, Absolute Power issue 1, kind of the main event of the week. We got Justice Society of America issue 10, so Jeff Johns somehow has returned. We have Shazam 13, we've got The Boy Wonder issue 3, Kneel Before Zod issue 7, My Adventures with Superman issue 2, The Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 7, and there's another one of those Batman and Robin and Howard summer breakdown things. So that is the books for next week. So notably a much healthier week 1 than the last several months, because this is the week. This is the week where I've only had 2 or 3 books most months for a while. So between the event coming in, JSA being there, definitely beefed it up a little bit. So yeah, that's what's coming. So that will pretty much wrap up the show, everyone. So thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next week. I'll also do a Patreon book or 2 next week. Probably one, I imagine, unless the week after this looks particularly busy, but I'll see you when the time comes. So that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us. You can, of course, support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. But any support, whether it's just liking, sharing the show, whatever it is, all of it does help. So thank you very much. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you for listening or watching. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.